we'll just stop recording, and that was the 1000th episode of Seriously Wrong.
Wow, what a wonderful, strange trip it's been. And now, 10,000 years of world peace, 1,000 episodes.
10,000 years of world peace.
Giving rise to 10,000 years.
We've always
done
said,
it.
just look out the window, and things are changing out there. It's starting.
Wow. First a little, then a lot. We're really finally doing it.
The grass is growing. People are playing hopscotch.
The wildlife is returning. The sky is clearing.
The global average temperature, I can see it going down right now.
What a wonderful journey this has been.
Yeah, lifelong podcasting journey, but worth it for these 10,000 years of world peace to come, even though we won't see most of it. Maybe just the start.
Yeah, but that's natural. It is what it is, and it's something you accept.
Yeah.
It makes me wistful, makes me reminisce. You know, one of the standout episodes for me over the years, a real milestone, and not, I mean, in many ways an arbitrary milestone, because we have a base 10 numeric system, but...
you're talking about the 10-year anniversary special?
The 10-year anniversary special, yes.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, the 20 and 30-year anniversary specials, those were good too, but there's something about that first one.
We had that young spark.
Yeah, no
naive back then. And I love reminiscing, but one of the types of reminiscing I love the most is reminiscing about reminiscing.
Yeah, that was some good reminiscing. You remember that? You remember how we reminisced?
Those were the days.
Reminiscing
when
about
you could really reminisce back then.
Yeah, and you only had 10 years of stuff to reminisce about. Reminiscing now, it's so overwhelming.
Yeah,
There's so much to reminisce on.
Good, simple, old-fashioned reminiscing. The way that we used to do it.
In some ways, we didn't know how good we had it back then.
You know what might be a nice treat for us, old friend, is... pull out the tape of that 10-year special and just give it a listen, to celebrate having finally made it through our 1,000.
I don't know if I could listen to myself. Oh, no.
Oh, don't be embarrassed.
I get so self-conscious.
No, it's fine. You're fine. We did great. Don't worry.
I guess maybe in my old age I can finally let go of some of that self-conscious editing brain and just listen to an old episode and appreciate it.
Yeah, here, I'll just pull out the tape player and...
wheel it out one last time.
And I'll slide in this tape. Here it is. Tapes feel heavier every year, although they're getting smaller every year. We're advanced, futuristic. I mean, present tense to us, but futuristic to the past. I mean, I guess that's true of any present, but...
Yeah, the present is always futuristic compared to the past.
Yes.
It's something you rarely think about when you're in it, but we should.
Well, I mean, that's the type of wisdom that you get with age.
So I'll just press that closed 10-year anniversary special.
Let's press play.
I am wrong. You are wrong. We are wrong. I am wrong. He is wrong. She is wrong. They are wrong. We are wrong. Seriously. 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 Wrong.
The year is 2014. Transformers and Guardians of the Galaxy are playing in theaters. Last week tonight in True Detective Season 1 both premiered to rave reviews. Game of Thrones is at its peak in its third season. Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 disappears mysteriously. ISIS announces a caliphate in Syria and Iraq. Russia annexes Crimea. Israel launches Operation Brother's Keeper, killing 2,300 Palestinians, 70% of which were civilians, and wounding 10,000 more. Maroon 5 and Bobby Shmurda are tearing up the charts in America. The Seriously Wrong podcast is born. The world will never be the same.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 10-year anniversary episode of Seriously Wrong.
A decade. So we've got 10 fingers on our hands, and for that reason, the number 10 carries a lot of weight in our culture.
Yeah, we've created a base 10 numerical system.
Right.
It's where it switches from 1 digit to 2 digits.
That's a big switch.
It is, yeah. And it starts counting over again, like you go 1 1 instead of like a new strange shape that we haven't invented yet.
Yeah, no, and this isn't something that's external in the universe. This is something we created basically because we have 5 fingers on each hand, and then
It
we
makes
built
counting easier, your fingers and toes, and now 10 years of Seriously Wrong have passed, and this is a major milestone because of all of this.
Yeah, it's a decade, and it's a decade ultimately because we have 10 fingers on each hand.
On both hands combined, not each hand.
Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah.
We have 5 fingers on each hand, totaling 10.
Thank you.
Therefore, numerically, a decade becomes a large, important section of time, and 10 becomes an important number. We can't change it. No one asked us, and we're at peace with it.
Yeah, we're not here to fight the importance of the decade or of the number 10 in our society.
No,
we're
not at
just
all.
submitting to it, and we're saying this podcast is now 10 years old, and we're here to celebrate it.
But we do want to point out that it's arbitrary, just to get the wheels turning. It is arbitrary in many senses. Not totally arbitrary, because like we said, the fingers on hands.
But yeah, if we lived in Simpsons world, like it would make more sense if in the Simpsons they had a base 8 system, but they don't.
Yeah, that would be very interesting if in the cartoon world there was a consistent base 8 system that was used and they had their own math and so on. And I think that's something that our cartoonists should consider. But we don't have time to do that ourselves today because we have to do a 10-year anniversary episode of Seriously Wrong. So thank you for being here, and thank you for listening, and thank you especially to those who donated on our Patreon. We couldn't do it without any of you doing all the things that you do. Your time and attention means the world to us, and we hope that our podcast means the world to you.
And yeah, thank you to everybody who gave us questions. We put it out there that we were doing an anniversary episode, and we asked people, what do you want to know about 10 years of doing Seriously Wrong, about our thoughts and feelings on it? So we're going to be digging into all of those very soon, coming up.
Yes, but first, let's have a word from our very real actual sponsors who, without them, we wouldn't be able to run the show because canonically in universe, they're sponsoring it, which is how many shows are funded. Now, we don't actually run ads, and I think we probably never will because we just don't like them. In fact, often I'll listen to a good show and I'll find the ads are enough to keep me from continuing listening. And I would never want to do that to my dear beloved listeners. We use a Patreon and bonus episode model, so thank you to everyone who does that. But without further ado, let's go to our sponsors, our real in-universe canonical sponsors who canonically in-universe sponsor this episode. But
make it at all possible.
But not literally. Literally, it's actually you, the listener, that make it all possible because we don't really run ads and we probably never will. This episode of Seriously Wrong is proudly brought to you by Wrong Boy's Pizzeria. Brought to you in a decade or less, or it's free.
Hello, Wrong Boy's Pizzeria.
Hi, I'm going to need a pizza sometime between now and 10 years from now, but it kind of doesn't matter when.
Oh, perfect. We guarantee that it will arrive in 10 years or less.
Perfect.
So it may arrive in exactly 10 years. That would be the absolute last moment you could expect it. And if not, it's free.
Well, that's great because I wouldn't need it after that. So
yeah,
that's
so you
perfect.
could give it to someone else
Right,
or,
yeah.
I don't know, put it in the fridge. But it may arrive today, but it could also arrive
9 years, 364 days from now. I get
Exactly,
it.
yeah. It could also arrive 4 years, 3 months, and 6 days from now, for example.
So how do you decide? Is it random? You just flip a coin which one you're going to do next, or?
Well, we just have a really progressive work culture, so we let people take their time, make their own choices. Worker democracy takes up a lot of the day.
Right.
No pizzas have gone out at all since we were created, but we've only been open for 3 months.
All right, well, I'll...
Because I just think the hustle and bustle of the... Sorry for interrupting, but I think the hustle and bustle of the modern world is sometimes a little too fast and too much.
No, I was just going to say, I'll just give you my credit card, take my money.
Perfect, yeah. So we take the money now,
Yeah.
and if it comes after 10 years, then we'll give you back the money.
I don't even mind paying now because it'll be such a good deal. Pizza, who knows where food prices will be between 1 day to 10 years from now. They could be anywhere.
No, I can tell you're a very smart man.
I like to plan ahead.
So you pay $33 today and you get what is going to be worth $120 worth of pizza in 9 years. And if not, it's free. We'll give you back your $33. You got nothing to lose.
9 years, 364 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 30 seconds later. Oh wow, this is really getting down to the line. I wonder if this pizza's gonna show up. Hello?
Hey, I've got your, you ordered pepperoni, right?
Yep.
Here you go.
Thank you. And wow, with 15 seconds to spare, you guys did it.
Well, we were a very tightly run ship.
I was going to say I'm going to get that refund, but I guess not.
No refund for you. When the wrong boys make a word, they stick to it.
You know, I'm really proud of you and your company. You know, when I first talked to you, not a single pizza had been delivered. And now, as I understand it, you've delivered many pizzas, and you delivered mine on time.
Admittedly, there's been a few refunds.
Right.
I'll be the first to admit it.
No company is perfect.
But I can proudly say we have delivered the vast majority of the pizzas on time, and the pizzas that were late were arrived, given the pizza, and then they got their refund.
No, it's just such a great company. It's great looking back on 10 years of you existing.
Oh,
and
yeah. What a long, strange trip it's been.
And I mean,
it was a real learning journey. Sorry to interrupt you, but it was a real learning journey.
And I feel like you're just entering a whole new chapter now, because you'd only existed for 3 months when I first called, and now it's only been 3 months of time where you've actually been running up on deadlines. Mm-hmm. And I imagine that's kind of changed things in your work culture a little bit. And
it's stressful, but you know, as an ADD child, I find a little bit of stress stimulating.
Right. Is it like a list of orders and dates and kind of like
Absolutely. We keep something almost exactly like that.
An Excel sheet, or what kind of data software do you use?
We use a CRM system, a client. I can't remember what it stands for. Maybe you could look it up. But
I don't know.
CRM is what they're called, where you have a list of people and then the associated characteristics. And so most organizations will have that for like a list of people, their sort of data system.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go eat this pizza before it gets cold, but thank you. And cheers to another 10 years.
Oh, thank you so much. Do you want to place another order?
Yeah, I'll do it over the phone. I don't want to keep you.
Oh, that's no problem at all. I can come in and you can start eating and we could talk it out. Or
Oh, yeah, sure.
Are you busy?
No, not really. I'm just going to eat pizza, but...
Cool. Yeah, well, we don't have any like hard commitment. Like, this is the last one for today, so we know. So I can talk about the business or whatever.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Maybe this will be the start of a friendship.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Or maybe not. I don't want to put expectations on it so soon.
Ooh, feeling pressured. No, I'm just kidding. No, you seem like a chill guy. I think we could both feel out if it's not working socially.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, come on in. And fun fact, this pizza would cost $700 today, and I only paid $33 for it. It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Look at you go. I gotta come after you. You're ripping me off. No, I'm just kidding. It's all worked into our business plan.
Yeah, no company makes it 10 years without a strong business plan, so...
Thank you so much for saying that. Anyway, so basically the premise is that the pizza comes within 10 years. And that's what started the business.
Oh, yeah, and was your business, did it just arrive from nothing, or did you have sponsors? Is your business sponsored by anyone?
Thank you for asking. We actually did have many sponsors early on, because obviously in those early years we were just taking in money and delivering no pizza, and we were paying wages.
Right.
So we had to have some way to add pizza to it.
Right.
Do you mind if I play you a short tape on I've got a handheld tape player. It's just my personal...
I'm just eating this pizza. Amazing how small tapes are getting nowadays.
Yeah, so much smaller than 10 years ago. I mean, I guess...
Lighter, too.
The future is now, is what they say.
This pizzeria is proudly brought to you by Srsly Wrong Boy, the anthropomorphized human form of the Seriously Wrong podcast.
Hi, everyone. My name's Srsly Wrong Boy. Thank you so much for supporting my development, as I've come from a baby now to a adolescent. But doctors say that I'm badly sick and in need of medicine, which is very expensive. Can you please consider donating to the Seriously Wrong Patreon at the tier of $6 a month, which gets you access to the whole archive and all the bonus episodes in the Patreon community on Discord, exclusive access to occasional text posts, and frequent bonus episodes.
A question from the audience: will donating to the Seriously Wrong Patreon keep you alive, little sickly boy?
Yes, exactly. Every dollar that is given to Seriously Wrong increases the Seriously Wrong Boy anthropomorphized version of the podcast medicine fund. I'm a human being, and I will literally die without your support. Die for real.
Oh, that poor sick little boy. We have to keep him alive. If that was just a podcast, it would be morally neutral if we kept him alive. But since it's a real little anthropomorphic boy, we better donate.
I'm going to give the maximum donation to save this sweet boy.
Our call lines are open. You can call and give your credit card number or head over to patreon.com/seriouslywrong and help this little anthropomorphized podcast boy who's very sick and very in need. Help him out. We thank you for your donations.
Hey, wait a minute. Shawn and Aaron created this sick boy.
Actually, we didn't create him. An evil wizard turned our podcast from a podcast into an anthropomorphic boy, and we've been tasked with keeping him alive. So it's not we did create the podcast, but we didn't turn it into a boy.
Oh, well, that deals with all my concerns, and I'll be donating soon.
Thank you. Thank you for your help with this. And if anybody knows where that evil wizard is, we want to have a word with him. Obviously, don't undo the spell, because that would now be kind of like killing a boy who currently exists.
Yeah.
Now that he exists, he has to keep existing, as far as I'm concerned. But we still want a word with him, because you can't go around turning podcasts into people.
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes it takes magic to fight magic. And we
Right.
can't just stop here at this unjust situation, nor can we go back to an idyllic earlier one. We have to move forward or to the side or maybe do a loop or whatever. But we need to move towards something new. We can't just undo the boy. I think that would be wrong.
And, we promised we would never have real ads on the show, real sponsors, but we have had to adjust our thinking on that and finally bring real sponsors to the show to care for this anthropomorphic boy. It's very important. He's very sick.
He needs real ads to support him. I mean, just look at him.
Yeah.
It's a real human life we're talking about.
So we're going to wheel out the tape player, and it's with a heavy heart that we bring real ads to Seriously Wrong for the first time with this tape. We'll
Put in
press
this
play.
tiny tape.
This anthropomorphic podcast child's life and medical needs are brought to you by Aaron, a daytime talk show.
It's Aaron. It's a daytime show that your family member's watching in the background. Join Aaron every weekday with a sizzling new guest.
Oh, Mr. T-Spiller, I can't believe you said that. I don't know if they're putting microchips in our bones, Felix, but I support your right to say it.
Tune in to Aaron's Book Club.
Our book this week is Geet on Geet, The Finkus Chronicles. It's not a book I think us will soon forget.
And watch Aaron dance. Get up out of your seat and dance with him if you want to. Shake things off. Now, an exclusive clip from a new episode of Aaron, airing Tuesday.
Welcome back, everybody, to Aaron. Our special guest this week is the producer of a new film about the Wrong Boys. His name is Shawn. He's one of the Wrong Boys. I'm also one of the Wrong Boys. Welcome to the show, Shawn. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. No, I'm a huge fan of what you do, not just on this show, but all of your work. But
Yeah, no, me too. Everything you've produced as a film or a podcaster, big fan as well. So it's an honor that you're on.
well, it's an honor to be here. I'm here both as a producer of a film, but also as a huge fan and an unapologetic fan.
So this new movie is a biopic with a lot of big name stars in it,
Right.
chronicling the life of Shawn and Aaron, you and me, coming up from little Rugrats up until the podcasters and multimedia producer, talk show hosts that we are today.
Yeah, it's a biopic about the rise of the Wrong Boys and the Seriously Wrong podcast. And when we were putting together this project, we asked ourselves who could carry that gravitas? Who's a big enough name, frankly? We got a lot of offers from people. And it's like, are you even famous? Like, how could you play them?
I heard that you turned down Henry Cavill, Jake Gyllenhaal, Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fair of me to say, but suffice to say there were some large names.
And I hear you are actually announcing who's playing the Wrong Boys today on the show. Is that right?
That's right. We're really proud, and I'm here as a producer, but I think everyone involved in the project is really proud to announce today that we have secured, after some bitter and protracted negotiations, to have the Wrong Boys portray themselves. So it'll be a biopic about them that is also starring them at all ages throughout their life. We've seen from the show, the kind of range that they have, the way that they can embody any age.
Absolutely. And I mean,
Effortlessly and accurately.
The technology is just there now.
It's true.
It's seamless.
And yeah, I'm actually excited to not just be here to talk about it, but actually to show an exclusive clip to the viewers of Aaron now for the first time, a world premiere.
So in this first clip, we join the Wrong Boys as children, creating their first secret podcast in the attic.
Well, those bullies sure were harsh today. Just because we want to make podcasts and do auditory art. It's auditory art.
Yeah, we're really trying to do something different with the medium of podcast, but these bullies don't understand. They think we're just not putting any effort into it, or they're dissing the medium as a whole, and it's like, give us a chance.
Yeah, we can't let them get to us, even though it's day after day, every class, every break, private messages, cyberbullying, harassing phone calls. But you gotta move on. You gotta focus on the work.
The important thing is that no matter what anyone says or does, however they try to stop us, that we keep on going because we believe in this.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Okay, so I was thinking in this next part, the ad itself has like its own ad, so kind of we can.
Shawn? Aaron, what are you doing up here?
Oh, quick, hide the recording. It was my dad.
He verbally abuses us every
Shawn,
day.
what are you doing? Hey, is that
Nothing, Mr. Villiers. We're just cleaning up here.
Yeah, I just wanted to contribute to the family's health and well-being, Dad.
Say, you're not playing with that train set I told you is for babies, are you?
No, and we're not podcasting either.
Podcasting, huh? I've told you before, Shawn. I've told you, Aaron, too. Never podcast. It's forbidden in this house. And I'd say maybe if you're a smarter kid, a brighter kid, more promising kid, I'd say, hey, maybe go for it, try art. But no, not you, Shawn. And Aaron, you're no better. Neither of you could be podcasters. And you could never do it for 10 years, ever. You know what, actually, Aaron? I'm gonna call your dad. I'm gonna put him on speakerphone. 1 second.
Yeah?
Hey, Aaron's dad?
How's it going? Did you catch those boys doing something bad again?
Yeah, they floated the idea of podcasting to me again.
Floated the idea.
They said they weren't doing it, but I
Is
don't
there any recording equipment around?
Oh my god, look, there's a whole recording setup. This is going right in the trash, boys.
Aaron, Shawn, what did I tell you about podcasting?
What did he tell you about podcasting too?
I said no child of mine will be a podcaster, and no friend of any child of mine will be a podcaster either, and that's that. That's the rules in this house, and I assume in your house too.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely, yeah.
I don't want to speak for your house, but I think we both agree on this, that these boys can't be podcasters.
We're in full agreement on this, and not only can they not be podcasters, but to do so is a moral failing, something that will cause them to be judged. It's the reason they're bullied at school, and now obviously you want to stand up for your own child, but sometimes you just can't when you're getting the right kind of bullying at the right time for the right reasons.
Most podcasters don't make any money, and frankly, these boys aren't creative enough to make money.
Hear that, boys? He agrees with me. You both have no talent. Now, I don't understand both of you are both big losers, but you can do something meaningful with your lives, even though podcasting is a job for big losers and you're big losers.
I mean, they can get like a mid-level job somewhere or do something mildly beneficial to society, but that's about it. No podcasting for sure.
Not in my house and not in his house. Podcasting is the devil's audio. Give up.
Wow. That was harrowing, what the Wrong Boys had to go through there.
Yeah. No, it's not fun to watch. It's not meant to be fun to watch. I say that as a producer. It's meant to shock. Because what the Wrong Boys went through in starting this process, it's no laughing matter. And it's something you have to raise awareness about. And it really shows what they overcame, which is why they're the folk heroes that they are.
Absolutely, yeah. Every inspiring story has to have its dark moments, and this one is no exception to that. I mean, even if there were some creative liberties taken in the process, that's just the way that these biopics work. I think the emotional truth of these scenes speaks for themselves. And
absolutely. There's in art, you take some liberties to tell deeper truths. Like, for example, Schlooper. He's actually an amalgam of several real-life bullies. Right. But in our movie, we have Schlooper follow them through the years.
An amazing performance, too, by Geet Finkus in that role.
Yeah, Schlooper. He absolutely killed it. And actually, my son and his son are now playing softball together. So we really hit it off on the film.
Oh, that's so nice, yeah.
Yeah, he's just as nice as people say. And I'm honored to call him a friend.
We will be back with more of the Wrong Boys story. But first, Aaron is brought to you by the Seriously Wrong podcast. And we are going to, I believe, play a clip from their 10-year anniversary show.
Oh, incredible.
Right now.
I've been looking forward to that.
Roll the clip.
So here in the Seriously Wrong anniversary listener mailbag, one of the things that the good people want to know So how did we get started with this? One of the questions here, what motivated you to start doing this crazy thing in the first place? And did you think back then it'd still be going strong a decade later?
Yeah, I think I've always been motivated to create things, like make creative works, make stuff. Basically, my whole life, I've been working on various projects of different kinds, trying to write novels, screenplays. Before we started the podcast, I had done a little bit of YouTube stuff. I'd made some YouTube videos. Briefly did another podcast by myself, kind of floundered out after like 10 episodes because I didn't keep the motivation to keep doing it. But yeah, I don't know. It's whatever it is that's motivated me to do this. It's just something that's kind of always been there.
Yeah, I had made cartoons as a teenager, like The Ultimate Showdown and stuff. And like the prospect of doing internet content was always one of the things that seemed like a bearable way to live as compared to like the jobs that I worked and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and before we'd met, I was listening to podcasts a lot at work, and I liked the medium, and I had like a friend from high school who I'd done a lot of stuff with, and I was trying to get him to do a podcast with me for a while, but it was kind of, he's just one of those guys that's hard to pin down and get to actually do stuff. So I knew that I'd have to like really carry the bulk of it. And so by the time that we actually met, I'd more or less given up on making a podcast, although it was like an aspiration that I'd had for a little while to do kind of like a comedy politics thing of some kind.
Yeah, I always liked podcasts. I listened to them at work all the time, doing like hotel maintenance or even at previous jobs. And yeah, I just like the idea of like being able to look into things and then like talk about them. And even my previous show was like a topic of the week format. And I remember at the beginning thinking like, oh, we shouldn't do that this time. We should just have conversations about whatever. And the first 3 episodes were kind of like that, but we pretty quickly fell into a topic of the week format again on this one. But yeah, and did you think it would still be going strong a decade later? It really depends on like what kind of mood I was in when you asked me. Like after we had produced a few episodes, you know, there'd be moments where I'd be like, yeah, this is going nowhere. But then there'd also be moments where I'd be like, this is the greatest podcast in all of history. We're going to become bigger than Joe Rogan. We're going to become the biggest ever. Like that sort of duality of the content creator brain, the slightly narcissistic side of like, I'm a genius. And then the other side of like, this is horrible. Nobody's ever going to listen. So kind of, but also no. I would say mostly no.
Yeah, I don't remember what feelings I had for the long term of the show. Like I always enjoyed doing it. I remember early on, I was editing episode 6 and I lived in a house with like 4 other roommates, and people were going out to a party and they wanted me to come drink with them. And I had this self-imposed deadline that I'm finishing this episode and I need to keep working on it. And I remember a friend of mine being like, oh, come on, man. Like this podcast isn't going to go anywhere. And I was like, oh, well, fuck you. It's going to go somewhere. No, but I think I had a very workmanlike mentality of if we keep doing this, then we'll see if it can go somewhere. And like, so the first step is just doing it. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. It was a good experience, but you're hoping that it goes somewhere and there's an audience for it. And we're doing something interesting. We're having conversations that we think are different. We're doing the types of conversations that we wished that we were hearing on the other shows that we liked to listen to. So it was kind of like following that logic of like, try to make the stuff that you're interested in, and then wasn't really thinking of how to make an audience or whatever, but like just thinking of like, this is what we're interested in. If we like it, then other people will like it. But I still think the prospect that we'd be 10 years down the road doing like a 10-year anniversary episode, even with a more sort of grandiose, it would still be a very humbling, fascinating, interesting thing to imagine. And the specific way that it happened and like what we've done over the years, I think is totally different than what I would have imagined back then.
Yeah. Like I said, it was either the grandiose, like, we're going to be the biggest podcast in history. I don't know if I ever actually believed that, but like you fantasize. But like, yeah, just it being like...
Yeah, like having the studio and the staff and like that kind of dream.
Yeah. And like you don't... When you're just getting started with something like that, you don't know what would it even look like to be doing this in 10 years. It's like, it's hard to imagine, like impossible really to imagine.
I remember thinking early on, like in 2014, even being like, I feel like the podcast market's kind of like saturated. Like there's a lot of podcasts that exist. Like we got to try to figure out how to do something interesting because there's just so many. There's more shows that I can listen to.
Yeah, I remember being like so happy whenever I would find a podcast I found interesting, and then I would go back and listen to like 100 episodes or whatever, like the whole back catalog, and then catch up, and then be upset that they weren't putting out even more constant content for me because I had like so much time to listen to podcasts. I was like, oh yeah, no, this is like it's an endless open field. There, you could have so much more of this stuff. There's nowhere near enough.
Right. Yeah, I remember you saying something like that earlier on in the show, too, when we were talking about the amount of listeners we had and stuff. And it felt like small. We were getting listeners in the hundreds in the first dozen episodes or whatever. And like, it was never something we paid that close attention to. But like, I remember being like, oh, hundreds, shouldn't maybe we try to get thousands? And you're like, no, it's fine. People will find us someday and they're going to have all this great stuff to listen to. They're going to go back like I do, episode 1, and just listen to it all. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of how I listen to the shows that I like too. So
yeah, and I don't even think we were getting 100 views. Like we repurposed the feed from my old podcast so that anyone who had been subscribed to that would be subscribed to this one. And then we told kind of all our friends about it and whatnot. But I still think it was only like, yeah, maybe 100 for those first 10, 15, 20. It started growing even in the first year. But yeah, it's funny. You mentioned you had wanted to do a podcast with your other friend with that. He was kind of hard to pin down. And I think a big reason why this ended up working for us was that sort of like workman-like mentality where we just committed to it and kept putting out episodes. And even though we weren't getting a ton of listens, we kept doing more. And we both were willing to keep doing it and keep putting stuff out for no pay for a long time because we didn't even launch the Patreon until a couple years into it. But we both just, had this really strong desire to like want to make something.
But yeah, how we got started together, we had a mutual friend, someone that I knew through the Pirate Party and someone that you knew through the Zeitgeist movement.
Shout out Raz.
Yeah. And Raz reshared a video that you had made, which was a video that was a reading of Workers of the World Relax by Bob Black. And I watched the video and I thought it was great. Like it was a good essay and great video. And so I added you to be like, oh, I want to connect with more people who are doing the type of shit that I would do with like interesting politics. And then we were like Facebook friends for, I don't know, probably months and months without ever talking to each other. But then I decided early 2014 that Facebook wasn't working for me and that it was like this weird addictive platform that I was like arguing with people on without any benefit. And so I made my little like, I'm leaving Facebook post. I'm leaving Facebook. So like reach out to me and we can connect by text or whatever and like stay in contact while I'm off Facebook. And you reached out to me being like, hey, I noticed that you live in Vancouver. So we ended up meeting up.
Yeah.
Because we were both in a very open place in our life right then. I think like we were both really like vibey.
Yeah. I was like the Zeitgeist Vancouver stuff was going in a direction I wasn't really interested in anymore. And like I had this podcast that I wasn't really doing anymore. And I was kind of just looking for other things or collaborations. And yeah, we met at that Cafe du Soleil, which doesn't exist anymore.
On Commercial Drive, yeah, unfortunately. Shuttered in the pandemic. It was a great place.
And we sat there and talked for like 2 hours, I think, just about like all kinds of different politics stuff. And I don't even remember I remember that conversation being the first time I'd ever heard the words identity politics and asking you what that meant. Because I was very out of the sort of people interested in politics sphere, like coming into it from a weird online conspiracy documentary turned utopian movement. I knew a lot about certain political things like anarchist writers or ideas about private versus personal property, or like, I knew certain things, but then there were other things I was just like completely unaware of. I was like, oh yeah, feminism, that's good or whatever. But I didn't know anything really about like sort of contemporary identity politic, for lack of a better term.
I think with the identity politics thing, I might be confabulating. I remember sitting in the booth there and complaining about that I had a friend that I really admired and liked speaking to, but that any sort of topic was always brought back and framed in terms of like these identity groups and this like essentialism. And I was like, it's fine, obviously. Like there's room for that and it's valuable. And this is kind of like in the time where socially these identity politics kind of things are like washing through my political friend groups for the first time. First hearing about it around 2011 territory, 2012, but it's becoming really kind of mainstream where it's just coming up all the time. And I was like, that's one lens and it's a good lens. It's a useful lens, but like, shouldn't we have like multiple lenses on things? Like every time we talk about an issue, are we always going to bring it back to identity essentialism? And like, I remember it resonating that we're talking about like the multiple lenses thing and like the idea that you can look at things from multiple perspectives. And like, that was one of the things that was resonant between us where we were really kind of like hitting it off, where we're like, why can't we just be like really big brained and look at everything from every angle? And, you know, like,
yeah, it's definitely a big part of the show early on. And I think we also really connected about kind of the idea of like post-scarcity stuff or fully automated luxury communism, universal basic income, internet culture, internet freedom, drug war. Just we had a lot of overlapping opinions. But yeah, I think if I remember right, you originally pitched like us doing some video content together because you came to me through that YouTube video and you had done cartoons in the past and maybe wanted to do them again. And I remember being like, what about a podcast? Like I just had this one that didn't work out, but I still wanted to do it. So, and you were like, yeah, sure, we could do a podcast. And then like very quickly, because I already had mics, I already had like set up to record or whatever. I think we got together one time after that to like discuss what we wanted to do or talk about the show in general or plan. And then the third time we met in person or hung out, we recorded the first episode of the show at my apartment.
Yep. Episode 1 was like our third ever in-person conversation. And yeah, we had a little bit of like, we're becoming friends and we're like, there's kind of like that intellectual excitement of like, we have different points of view, but we have a lot of shared basis. And also I remember feeling like it's kind of rare that I meet people that I can talk about all these different things with. Yeah, I was really excited about it right away. And that first year, we were just doing it every week. And every second episode was edited by either you or me. And we just go back and forth. And yeah, one of the questions that we got here is, how did you guys come up with the sketch/discussion format and how much improv is in the sketches? And I remember during the production of the first episode, I was working as a overnight security guard on the downtown east side. And I think maybe we split editing on the first episode.
I don't remember.
Because I feel like I was doing some editing and listening to it. And I was like, this feels like I want to do something else. I want to add something to it. I want to add like a sketch or something like that. And this is like ancient. This is 10 years ago. But I remember basically like messaging you and being like, hey, I want to add, a fake ad to this or whatever. I want to add a sketch to this. And you were like, sure, go for it. If you record it yourself, go for it. So then at work, I had my like little recording setup. It was probably a Snowball that I had, those shitty USB mics, and I recorded some like little sketch bits for that first episode. And then over time, it became like, we started by doing like maybe one fake ad or one little sketch thing for an episode. And then we were just getting good responses on the sketches from people early on. Like I remember having someone that I just knew through Occupy on Facebook messaging me randomly being like, hey, I listened to this episode and that sketch was really funny. It connected to this idea of like, oh, there's so many different podcasts. Like we just want to talk and share our thoughts. But if we're going to ask people to listen to us, then I feel like we got to give them something a little extra. So like, I think over that first year, we tended to do smaller amounts of sketches, like the first, 40 episodes or something that we did, like that weekly churn, our original sprint.
My memory of the first year is that we did pretty wildly varying amounts of sketches. And like some episodes had a bunch, like maybe 3 or 4. And some episodes had none. Even like later into the show, we would still we still very occasionally do something without a sketch. I don't know when the last time we did that was, but
I mean the 301.
Yeah, there were no sketches in there. I couldn't remember if we ended up doing anything for that. But yeah, I think where it started clicking into place for me or understanding it as more than just a a fake ad. Like the idea of doing a fake ad made sense to me. I had even done a fake ad on the previous podcast, and like just it's an easy joke to do in like any sort of content that you're making, like a podcast or whatever, brought to you by a joke or whatever is like a really simple thing to do. But what in episode 6, you being like, let's do an entire episode where we just pretend to be characters who just love circumcision. And I have all these ideas about it. Like we'll call it circumcision spectacula without the R at the end because you're trimming a little off, like a circumcision. I don't even think at the time we were both really into anti-circumcision activism or anything, but we both were like, yeah, circumcision's dumb. Like routine infant circumcision is dumb. Just
And it's also funny. It's just like, and it's like a thing you're not supposed to like draw attention to. I was inspired too by MC Paul Barman. Had this song that I listened to a lot of Paul Barman then, and he had this song that was like critical of circumcision. It just seemed funny.
that was like a big realization of what our sketches ended up being like, I guess, in the end, which is a lot of the time us saying things we don't agree with, but agreeing with each other about them, just inhabiting these like goofy parallel worlds where some major thing is like really weird or different. And yeah, it just kind of evolved over time to where we were like, okay, each episode we'll like record for a while and then we'll do some sketches, pop those in. We can like add more information in the sketches, or we can do this or that, or tell a little story. But yeah, I think those were like the basic building blocks. You wanting to like add some stuff to that first episode, and the circumcision episode just being this playful improv space of like, yeah, what if we lived in a world where like we're just two guys who just love circumcision?
And we did stuff in that episode, like we're interviewing a crying baby about his circumcision, and we're just both saying to each other, wow, he loves it.
Yeah.
And like that's some of the
Oh, it looks so
kind of,
great.
like,
It's perfect.
yeah, it looks so great. I remember being really proud at the time too of just like getting so weird and just like committing to something. Because yeah, and I had a background in improv. Like I did improv all through my like early teen years and stuff, and like always was like a big fan of improv and enjoyed improv. And yeah, and so the question of like how much improv is involved, generally a lot is. There's some exceptions, especially as the show went on, is like we've learned more about the interplay between the editing process and the recording process. We used to spend a lot more time just riffing for a long time and then cutting it down. Whereas like eventually we figured out like, oh, we'll figure out the main joke and then we'll riff around that and we'll find some other interesting stuff. But then there's also some times where we've like just basically written out a sketch, very scripted. Although there's always room for improv, and like we're never, shooting each other dirty looks over an improvised line. But like, yeah, especially some of the higher concept stuff is where we start doing a little bit more planning.
A lot of the time that ends up happening for like the last sketch of an episode where we've set things up for 2 sketches and we want to make sure to like pull it all together at the end. I remember writing out a bunch of stuff for the final Wrong Town episode, like this part where they're like breaking into a thing, or there's like the smell of wafting cookies. Like I wanted to bring in all the characters of Wrong Town, so I was like, okay, I have to figure out all these little things or whatever. But I would say most of the time we just like talk it out for a while first, plan what's going to happen. We've made a lot of the jokes already off mic, and then we like start doing it again, and like new things come out as you're improvising. And then sometimes we have to pause to be like, okay, how do we end this? Like, where do we go from here to like get to an ending? Or sometimes one just naturally happens. But yeah, it's pretty varied, I'd say.
Yeah, someone asked, can you do a lightning round of some of the biggest laughs you've had in the show? And I think overall it's hard because like, yeah, I've forgotten a lot of the stuff that we've done. But like the circumcision episode is like a good early example of like time that we were just really following our nose in terms of what was cracking us up.
Yeah, making ourselves laugh a lot the whole time.
Yeah, it's like overall on the show, like every episode where we laugh while we're making it. I'd say it'd be a very rare exception that we're or like maybe something's going on in our life or something that we're not laughing when we're recording. And then, yeah, a significant amount of the time we're laughing really hard, at least once, we'll do really high concept sketches sometimes. And those tend to be the stuff that, like, I think I'm most proud of in terms of sketches usually. Like, one example is in People's Republic of Walmart, there's a sketch about like prices being updated in real time at the grocery store and stuff, like a true free market. And like, that's the kind of stuff that requires a decent amount of planning and thinking through. You can't just like turn on the mic and just come up with it. And that's a sketch that I was really proud of. And like the Papa and Boy series, I think it's like, for me, it's some of the high watermarks of stuff that I've ever written or participated in. Like the radio series, I just think the type of humor and high concept satire that we're doing in it is just something I'm really, really proud of. But it's not necessarily the stuff that's going to be making us crack each other up or like have to stop recording because we're laughing so hard. It's usually stuff like we were trying to brainstorm before recording of stuff that made us laugh. And like one thing that I remembered where I was just making myself laugh and I like couldn't get out this line was someone whose genitals were eaten by wild dogs, who is like the bad guy at the end of the sketch. And it's like, and his genitals were eaten by wild dogs. And every time I tried to say it, I would like laugh. And it's just stupid and it's crude. And like a lot of the time it's stuff like that.
One that like ended up becoming an ongoing meme on the show because of how much we laughed about it during the first appearance was Geet Finkus. And just it being like this, just, I don't know, the name just, it's somehow so perfect. Like it sounds almost like a real name, but weird, but not like so weird that it's just like Floop-de-Dizzle or something. It's like Geet Finkus. It's like something so perfect about it. And the original sketch of it was you mistaking me for Geet Finkus, like not knowing my real name and me being like, oh no, it's Aaron. And you're like, oh yeah, Geet Finkus. I don't know, like, I listened back to the original audio of that recording recently because it was in one of our Tales from Wrongtown things, and we were just having trouble breathing. We were laughing so hard at this, like, Geet Finkus. Like, it just absurd, weird. You could even hear it now and be like, I don't understand what's so funny about that, Geet Finkus. Like, but it made us laugh really hard, and it became a thing we kept bringing back over and over again.
So yeah, like crude shit, weird shit. I mean, stuff that will often make me laugh is if I'm like surprised by how Aaron's improv character is responding to something that I'm saying, where there's like this weird implication. Like he's not just saying what he's saying, he's also implying this weird other thing that's like almost inhuman in its weirdness. Like that's something that's a big source of laughs behind the scenes, and also like where people are just violating all social norms according to some sort of internal logic. Like that's often something that's making me laugh, or the place where these things intersect, where people are violating social norms. Like one example is early on, we had this character, the naked primitivist, like the joke being that, you know, clothing is technology, so primitivists should be naked. And like, there's something where like his dad just accepts him right away. And he's like, well, you should take your clothes off then, or something like that. And it's just so stupid.
Telling his dad about it. And he's just like, yeah, I'm going to go live in the woods naked. He's like, oh yeah, you should probably take your clothes off right now then. Yeah. And he's like, do you want to just drive me out to the, it's like, well, I could, but driving's a technology. You'll probably just want to walk naked from here. Right. And like, you probably don't want to take any food with you because it was produced by society. So, but yeah, you know, no father would be like, yeah, go out into the woods naked and alone with no skills, like because of your beliefs. But this father's just like, I accept you, son. I accept your beliefs and I want to help you achieve them. So I'm just going to, you know, like point things out to you that you should probably be doing.
And where there's that intersection between the weird wholesomeness, but also this antisocial, social norm violation stuff like that. That's always what's making us laugh. Like another thing is we had some sketch where there's guys swimming naked in a pond and then like a family arrives and we have this like silent family with kids, and then our guys get out of the pond naked and start talking to them. And like at one part they're like, oh, I'm just going to pop a squat right here. So like you're imagining a naked guy like squatting in front of a family with children to explain stuff to them. And like, that's the stuff that's making us laugh.
Yeah, it's just so wild. Another one we thought of was Big Baby Stranger Milk, which is Another thing that's kind of hard to explain, but just the phrase came out where we were like, oh yeah, like a big baby wanting stranger milk, like big baby. We ended up doing an entire very short bonus episode about it.
15-minute bonus episode early on.
Because we just couldn't stop like joking about it. So we were like, we'll just record this. Hey everyone, this is the big baby stranger milk spectacular. And we're like,
I haven't re-listened to that.
I have no idea if it's funny or if it's just us being stoned and ridiculous for 15 minutes, but
I thought it was funny then for sure.
Yeah, no, it still makes me laugh thinking about a big baby who wants that stranger milk.
Yeah, he doesn't want milk from mom, he wants milk from a stranger.
Yeah,
and it's that's just the repetition of it. It's like, it's same with Geet Finkus. It's like that we tricked ourselves into thinking it was funny by just repeating it so many times.
Right.
We always like playing like the dipshit versions of ourselves, like the naive versions of ourselves. And a recent one that was like really killing me was in the Evo Psych stuff, the Sperm Wars sketch where George Lucas is like reshooting the Star Wars movies, but it's all about sperm. Star Wars A New Rope. And then when we figured out, when we were sort of riffing, that it was real sperm being filmed under a microscope, and that George Lucas was so influential, like that was the direction Hollywood was moving, is like doing that more, like reshooting stuff starring sperm.
Yeah, just George Lucas being like,
it's got the crudeness and it's got the weird logic, and like that intersection is where we're crying laughing.
Yeah, like I don't know. One thing in that I remember just making me laugh is the like, because George Lucas is all like, oh, you know, these timeless stories being told over and over again, and the hero's journey and whatnot, and being able to like take that tidbit of knowledge about him and be like, yeah, you know, like I believe Star Wars is a very timeless tale, and I wanted to tell it over again in a new medium with sperm this time under a microscope. It's like, I don't know. It's very funny.
Yeah, so it's not even necessarily like our best bits or something like that, or like if you listen to the show, it's not always going to be the stuff that is funniest in the final edit, but that's kind of the principles that underlie, if you want to imagine where in the recording we're cutting ourselves out laughing, it's stuff like that.
The Sean Villiers Show may contain adult themes and strong language. Parents are cautioned that this show might not be appropriate for children.
Thank you everyone. Hello and welcome back to the Sean Villiers Show. Today's guests are doing wrong unto those who have wronged them. The backstabber is backstabbed. And our first guest is Aaron, co-host of the Seriously Wrong podcast. Thank you for being here, Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me. Big fan of the show, and I am pissed at the backstab that I've been dealt, but I'm here with revenge.
So your co-host has been doing you wrong. What happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, this all started a few years ago when he didn't have anywhere to go for Christmas. So my parents invited him over to our family's Christmas. My family really, really liked having him over for Christmas. And the only reason we had extra space that year was because another aunt was out of town. And now, because they had to decide between who to invite to Christmas the next year, they're inviting him. And I haven't been to my own family's Christmas for the last 4 years because Sean keeps going in my place.
Wow, that's a despicable act. And he knows that you can't come.
Yeah, he knows that it's either him or me, but he says, oh, he just enjoys it.
Of all the low-down dirty stuff that I've seen on this show, that certainly takes the cake. But I understand that you have arranged to have some pretty incredible revenge on him. What happened?
Long story short, I'm stealing his son away. I'm adopting his son out from under him. I'm going to be his son's new dad from now on. And he's just going to have to deal with it.
So you've reached an entire legal agreement, and the son wants to move. And
the papers have been signed, and he's out of his son's life forever. He no longer has a son, and there's nothing he can do about it. All that's left to do is to notify Sean about it, because he doesn't know.
Let's bring out Sean. I just enjoy his family's company, okay? I enjoy his family's company. Okay? I enjoy his family's Hey, Aaron.
Hey.
It's been a pleasure working with you over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we created some great stuff together.
Sean, I understand that you have something you wanted to tell Aaron. Thank you very much. Yeah, I do. Aaron, you know I just enjoy your family's company, and I've been fighting for you at these family dinners, saying we should make a spot for Aaron, or maybe he could fit over there at the kids' table. You know, dropping hints like, I think Aaron would love to be here for this moment, and Aaron's missing out on so much. You know, I'm saying this every year, and I just think you don't have any right to be mad at me. I'm just politely accepting an invitation to people.
A friend would say no.
That's not how I was raised. I was raised to politely accept invitations.
Well, you know how I was raised? To get revenge.
What do you mean? What did you do, Aaron?
Well, as you know, when I get angry, I get even. And you stole my family from me. I've stole your family from you.
What are you talking about?
Your son is no longer your son. He's my son now. I've adopted him out from under you. He's living with me now. He has a new bedroom. He's moved in.
Shawn Jr. would never do that.
Can he did. He signed the papers, legally emancipated. He's changed his name to Aaron Jr.
You piece of shit. You piece of... You piece of... Little Aaron Jr. is backstage, and we will be bringing him out after the break. But first, a word from our sponsor.
We've caught up with people who just saw Seriously Right, the Wrong Boys biopic, outside the theater to get the thoughts of the average movie-going citizen. Excuse me.
Hi, yes.
Sirs, what did you think about the movie?
3 words. Tour de force. It was incredible, mind-blowing, best performance I've ever seen, incredible script, and just a touching story that moves the heartstrings and also makes you laugh, makes you think. I hope they do a sequel. I hope they do 2 sequels.
I don't know what I liked best about it, if it was the cinematography, if it was the touching, gripping performances by the 2 leads, Shawn and Aaron, playing themselves at every age. I don't know if it was the special effects, the music. There was so much to love. It was perfect. It was a 10 out of 10, and not like one of those generous 10 out of 10s. I could give it higher if there was a number higher than 10 that was still below 10, but there isn't. So 10 out of 10, full 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I would say it actually lowers previous 10 out of 10s for me down to 9s, and I had to regrade the whole system because it was like up there, you know, in such a way that you're like, my favorite movie isn't so much my favorite movie anymore. So, and I realized that's really more of a 9.2, not a 10,
Yeah.
and the whole scale is shifted.
Absolutely. Yeah, I experienced the same thing. That 4.5 hours just flew by. Oh, how about you two? You're the oldest people here, I can see. What brought you out to this film today?
Well, I expected to hate it, but it was heartwarming, it was touching, it made me laugh, made me cry, it made me feel young again.
You know, I've never heard of these Wrong Boys. I just go to whatever the matinee is every Tuesday, and this one was playing, but I gotta say, this is the best gosh darn movie I've ever seen, and I'm gonna be looking them up, I'm gonna be listening to these podcasts, and I need more Shawn and Aaron after all that.
I think it might have cured a medical issue I've been struggling with. Time will tell.
Oh, you too? Yeah, I could swear that hip, it's just not bothering me anymore.
Yeah, I've got a very private and frankly embarrassing medical issue that has been completely resolved since the second act.
And how about you two, the youngest people that I'm seeing here at the film? What did you think of the film? I liked the part when they were boys making a podcast in the attic, and the parents said no, but they did it anyway.
I was inspired by their journey. I learned a lot about history along the way, and I've decided to get a job for children so I can contribute to their Patreon, which is a major theme of the film.
Yeah, I'd like to formally announce that all funds from my future lemonade stands will be going directly to the Wrong Boys Patreon from now on. That is amazing. That is amazing. Thank you so much, boys. And I think we have an exclusive clip from the movie to play for you all right now.
Did you hear the new Wrong Boys Radio Hour?
Wrong Boys Radio Hour.
Wrong Boys Radio Hour is the best hour of radio I've ever heard.
They're setting the college radio airwaves on fire.
Two geniuses. It's incredible.
Every episode
Wrong
is
Boys
better
Radio
than the
Hour?
last.
Did you say Wrong Boys Radio Hour?
Wrong Boys Radio
It's
Hour.
Wrong Boys Radio Hour.
It's on everybody's lips.
Wrong Boys Radio Hour. It's incredible.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wrong Boys Radio Hour.
The news and gossip on everyone's lips at Wrongtown College. Say, Aaron, did you have beans for lunch?
Why, no, Shawn, I don't think I did.
Oh, Aaron, you dropped a ripper.
Hey, Shawn, I saw that girl you have a crush on. Looks like she's going out with the quarterback of the football team. Oof, that's gotta hurt.
Sorry, what was that, Aaron? I can't hear you over the enormous noises of your own farts, which are constantly ripping.
Hey, shut down all this equipment. What did I tell you, boys? This is a radio-free college.
Dean Crabapple!
Hey, what did I tell you about broadcasting on the radio? That's not your career path. You guys are supposed to be in lower middle-class jobs with questionable moral underpinnings.
Counselor
You
Snakeheart!
boys are neglecting your studies
You don't
for
have
this.
potential,
It's a
but
waste of time.
Even without potential, you should be using it on something
waste
else.
of breath. Waste of my time, your meager talent.
Radio's wrong. It's just not morally okay in our society to broadcast audio. It's just not
And
right.
you boys specifically
Don't
don't
have
have
the talent for it.
Some
You-
people got what it takes, and you don't.
Even if you did have a show, it would never, ever last for 10 years.
And that's why we've had to make the decision.
You're expelled! Oh, expelled?
Oh no, what are we gonna do?
What are my verbally abusive parents going to say about this?
Can you really make it in today's society without a college degree?
Oh my god, this is... What are we going to do? I mean,
I guess we're gonna have to strike out our own way.
yeah, outside the college system. We could do our own thing. We could do it our way.
Yeah, I can't believe they expelled us though. That was so seriously wrong of them.
Seriously wrong.
wrong?
I like the sound of that. That's
Yeah.
the Seriously Wrong
Podcast.
Something we could do ourselves. It's outside the system. No repressive censors.
We could finally get back to our roots, like when we created podcasts in the attic at your place. Drop all these college radio cliches and we could just,
Finally tell the whole truth.
yeah, the whole truth.
And you've seen the people out there. We gave them that taste of freedom. What if we gave them the whole bag? We're gonna show that stupid Dean. We're gonna show everybody. And we're gonna do it for 10 years.
10 years at minimum. All we have to do is believe in ourselves.
Yeah, put her there, pal. I got a good feeling about this. This seriously wrong thing? It's going places. Turn off the TV. Wow, I really, really want to see that movie. But I was already listening to a Seriously Wrong episode. I'm a big fan. I was listening to their 10-year anniversary special, and I'm partway through it, so I should just put in these earbuds and hit play on this.
So someone asked us, how do you guys create the show? I would love to know what the process looks like. So yeah, the answer to this question over time involves a lot of variation. We always experiment with different stuff, but at a top level, basically what it looks like, usually we'll have an idea for what we want to talk about, and we'll do some research, and then we will record for a block of time talking like this about it, and then sometimes on the same day and sometimes on a different day, record a handful of sketches on that same subject, on that discussion we just had afterwards. And over time, we've more often started recording across 2 separate days.
Yeah, or even 3 or 4. Sometimes those aren't full recording days, but
Yeah, like hopping on Discord for an hour. Or
yeah.
sometimes we do multiple different episode sketches on the same day, stuff like that. But most often, I'd say standard right now is usually like 2 recording sessions, one which is the main recording and one which is the sketches. Sometimes we'll do more research after we start editing too, is we're like, oh, it feels like it's missing this. And
Yeah. We've been doing too, like trying to do fewer like 3-hour long big episodes where we'd be like, oh, we recorded for like 2.5 hours the first day, and then we recorded like 90 minutes of sketches, but there was still like 4 things we wanted to talk about. So we're doing another recording day for that. And like, that's kind of when we ended up in some like really long episode territory. And we do that less often now, but
still sometimes.
Yeah. And then, it moves into editing, which like editing also has undergone a lot of changes over time. But the basic formula is that there's like a first pass edit over it, which cleans up the major things, removes off mic talk, filler words, that kind of thing.
And sometimes on that first pass too, we've had other editors come in and do the first pass for us. On and off. Majority of the time we haven't, but there's been periods of time where we have.
And then the second pass is more like starting to put the stuff in order. Sometimes the conversations themselves need to be rearranged in order to like flow into the sketches properly. Or you're like, this point we made is like the perfect lead into this sketch, but it happens in the middle of this part of the conversation. So how do we like arrange this to make sense? Try to do that less often too, because once you start moving things around like that, it can get really confusing. But there's like, a second pass, a bit more detailed, add the sound effects, sound design, try and make the sketches as tight as possible. And then a final pass, which is like looking for little things to tweak, maybe some light rearranging, maybe tweaking levels or finding parts where the edits themselves made like a weird noise or anything, just a final polish pass. And this whole process can take anywhere from maybe a week on like a shorter episode that we're doing it less intensely to like, I don't know, a month if it's like a big long episode where there's a lot.
And the most extreme version of that being like the social ecology trilogy with all those different interviews we did and all the sketches we did. How long did we spend on that overall?
Months and months
and this was all
of editing on that because there was all those different interviews talking about the same topic and then trying to weave the voices together in a coherent way with these little things that we'd recorded on the same topic. And there was this great point they made and like, how do I fit this in? And I'd like go back to the interviews and find another little thing I want to jam in. And that was really, really fun actually editing it and like seeing it all come together. But it just took so long. It was like the most intense production process on anything we've done. And like you did all those interviews basically without me. I think maybe I was there for a couple of them. So there was like scheduling interviews with like 8 or 9 different people, hours of audio to go through, pare it all down, tons of recording sessions. I don't even know how many we did between us for all that stuff. It was a really big project.
Yeah, and it's kind of an example of like generally like how we split the labor internally is like Aaron is doing a lot more editing than I am, especially over the last, I guess, 5 or 6 years or earlier on. There was more of a even division there. And over time, it's kind of like I'll be doing more interviews, more scheduling, more responding to emails, more research, premise, sketch writing, etc. And we kind of like polarized in a way around skills, affinities, preferences over time. Although we both do both to a certain degree. But like since I've had a kid, I've been doing way, way less editing. And then when I was working on the Papa and Boy cartoon show, I was doing animation all the time, so I was doing way, way less editing then too. And like that's generally how things are divided around these two poles. And Aaron's kind of the master editor on this stuff, at least from where I'm sitting. He does stuff on a higher level than I can.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah. I feel like also like you just do, in terms of ideas for episodes, like I'll come up with maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 a year, or I don't know. It's like some of them come from conversations we're having, so it's not easy to like just say one or the other came up with it. But you're just constantly pitching me episodes. Like in Discord, I'll be like in the middle of editing on something, and then I get like a block of text that has like 3 suggestions in it, or like maybe for our next episode we should drop what we were gonna do, and here's like a whole bunch of other ideas, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm editing. I'm not gonna respond to this right now. But like you're like an idea generating machine, which was a big reason my first podcast didn't end up continuing on. Was I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. I've done 10 episodes. I'm out of ideas right now. Maybe I'll come up with more later, but I don't know what to do yet. So that's been really like complimentary, I think, like you feeling like there's not enough time to do all the ideas that you want to do. And also being way more willing than me to just be like, oh, here's 3 books. I'm going to read all these books. Whereas I'll do research, I'll read things in books, I'll control F in them, I'll read articles online, like Googling things, looking at academic articles, reading encyclopedia pages, various things and making notes. When I'm doing research, it's a bit more like shorter and targeted, I think, whereas you do a lot of like in-depth reading on things. Which I do sometimes, but yeah, the split is definitely, I lean more editing and you lean more pre-production research ideas stuff.
Yeah, and someone asked us, how do you typically engage in reading/learning? I can tell you enjoy it, but do you take notes? Is it regular or just when the feeling strikes? And yeah, I mean, first, yes, we definitely take notes.
Yeah.
If we didn't take notes, I don't know how much I would retain. And yeah, it's like I'm a lot, like for example, when we did the episode with David Wengrow on The Dawn of Everything, I read The Dawn of Everything cover to cover once, and then I did spot reading a second time, and I did notes, and then I gave those notes to Aaron for context while we did the sketches. And while I was doing that, he was working on editing whatever episode came before that.
Yeah, I think I read like a few small parts that you told me to read, and I listened to some of the stuff even David Graeber had been saying about the book before it came out. They had done some talks together about the ideas, and I didn't read the book cover to cover. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, as I've got a young kid, and it's a lot harder to read like I used to. I don't read a lot of fiction. I read a lot of nonfiction for fun. So sometimes the direction of the episodes we take comes out of things that I'm reading that I'm like, I got to talk about this. But yeah, like I feel very myself when I'm putting the time into it, and I still don't do it as much as I'd like. But like right now I have 3 books. I've got my 14-month-old baby that I'm watching most days. And I'm like, so I've only got 3 books on the go right now, and I've only read a few chapters of each of them. But yeah, it's something that I really like treasure about the production of the show and stuff. And yeah, someone asked Synchronicity Book Club why we don't do it anymore. And the answer is that we just forgot that it existed. We have a master document of all of our different sketch types that we try to like record for inspiration. And Synchronicity Book Club isn't in there for some reason because we did it years ago. And the basic premise, if you're a newer listener, is like, and this comes from our very kind of like hippie-ish earlier stuff, is like synchronicity, maybe a book will resonate, the mention of a book will resonate with the listener, and it's on the show. It's Synchronicity Book Club. It's assigned to go get it and read it in the magical thinking world, the synchronicity. So today's Synchronicity Book Club picks are The Tyranny of Theory by Ronald Tabor, which is a critique of Marxism from an anarchist perspective that I've read the first quarter of. The second is Loaded, A Disarming History of the Second Amendment by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, which is about the history of the Second Amendment in the United States and America's unique gun culture and how it connects to the colonial era. Which you're interested in that kind of stuff, highly recommend this book. It's really mind-blowing. I've read the first couple chapters of that one as well. And the third one is Full Spectrum Resistance.
So yeah, if any of those strike a chord with you where you're like, oh, that's so weird. I was just thinking about America's history of the Second Amendment or whatever and how it might affect things, or I've already forgotten some of the things you described. They're the tyranny of theory. If it just appears meaningful to you in a way that seems like something greater is going on, that means that you should read this book.
Yeah, and Full Spectrum Resistance is about, fighting and winning social movements, the history of movements, the whole spectrum of resistance and how it contributes to movement wins. I've only read the first chapter of this one, but it's definitely a banger. I started reading it and then I got COVID and then I haven't picked it up since. But I've been listening to the Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz as an audiobook, which if you have trouble focusing on reading, it counts. I say this as a guy who reads books in text also, so don't feel like that doesn't count.
Yeah, no, it definitely counts. Another production question we got is, when you talk to the audience during the podcast, do you look at the microphones or at each other or at a wall or window, perhaps? Dying to know this one. It's a great question. People always ask us this, like, are you looking at your microphone or...
Yeah, generally we look at different stuff. We're not super regulated or thinking about it. We know we're not being looked at while we record, so we just do what feels right.
Yeah.
But we kind of look around the room and alternate between glancing and looking at each other. Sometimes you can sort of establish a rapport in a second by making eye contact. We don't do prolonged eye contact, although it would be funny to imagine the whole time we're recording, we're just gazing into each other's eyes.
Yeah.
But it's if I'm talking to the audience, I think I'll usually make that eye contact rapport moment with Aaron first to be I'm doing something weird now. Whereas eye contact can sometimes be used to be establish, make sure we're on the same page. Someone's not thinking of the next thing to say or looking at their notes or whatever. If you're establishing now we're talking to the audience kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I look at you more to when I want to jump in. If you're talking and I'm you start leaning forward or making slight sounds to, just communicating all right, wrap this up. I want to say something. But a lot of the time when I'm talking to the audience, I'm trying to think through what I'm saying. So I'll close my eyes or yes. I don't know if I think I do look at the microphone a lot. Looking at it now, I'm yeah, I do. Or just look at the table or Sometimes we have notes in front of us, obviously, so you're looking down at the laptop or the computer that's nearby. Kind of look all over the place, but yeah, I'd say generally there's like glances to like communicate something, like I want to go, or should we wrap this up, or like what's going on now, or I don't know what to do next, or just like a smirking kind of look of like this is a joke. Yeah, it could be all kinds of things, but definitely not staring at each other.
Next up in the Decade of Seriously Wrong listener mailbag, how did the library socialist idea materialize? Could you tell listeners a story about how you landed on library socialism as a term/thing?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's kind of like two parts to this, and one part is the term library socialism, and the other part is the ideas behind library socialism. And I think the ideas behind library socialism didn't come all at once. They were sort of like building up the whole time we were doing the show, and even before doing the show, and from our influences and stuff before that. And when we came to the term library socialism, it felt like a way to encapsulate so many of the things we'd talked about previously and already believed, like a culmination.
Yeah, I had been involved in the activism with the Pirate Party of Canada, which is like an information freedom, pro-file sharing political party. Part of what really brought me into outside the box radical politics. And one of the things we always talked about was the internet as a lending library, the Pirate Bay as a lending library. The interesting through line between, say, like Napster and lending libraries was something that came up frequently. And Aaron came into this radical outside the box politics through the Zeitgeist movement and the Zeitgeist movies.
Yeah, and so for people who don't know, which I assume is most of our audience because it's not really a thing anymore, and you might just know Zeitgeist from the first movie, which talks about like 9/11 or like Jesus isn't real. It's like this internet documentary phenomenon. But after the first movie, it became more focused on this idea of building a world based on science where you can meet everybody's needs. It was a type of like techno, anarchist, futuristic, fully automated luxury communist type ideology that really like sparked my imagination and like has shaped my politics ever since. And like one of the things, an example that they use in the third Zeitgeist movie is they're talking about the difference between ownership and access, and how ownership is kind of a burden, and like you own all this stuff and you have to take care of it. And people don't really want to own things. They just want to be able to access the things that they want to use when they want to use them. And how the lending library is like a really good example of how that can work functionally in a society. So they use that example to talk about the distinction between access and ownership. A lot of the library socialist ideas are kind of nascent in some of that Zeitgeist movement stuff. So it was a huge influence on it. And also like Bookchin, post-scarcity anarchism. It was kind of like bringing together all these different influences we had. And we had been talking on the show for a while about these ideas and experimenting with different ways of phrasing things. And Shawn had been saying, I think for a while, like, things would be organized similar to a lending library, or using that example of a lending library.
Yeah. No, there's like multiple episodes. I can't remember the exact time frame. I know the first episode that we say library socialism is Running and Hiding as a Revolutionary Act, which is a great episode, by the way, if you haven't listened. It was so good when we originally made it to put it behind the paywall. This is like when we barely did any bonus episodes. And then after we finished it, we were like, we just can't justify only sharing this with 400 people or whatever was our Patreon at that time, even though it cost us money. The people deserve this, but it's a really good episode. But yeah, up to that point for like several episodes, one of my little riffs of the things that I was saying over and over again, because I really liked this. I had this joke with friends about in public relations and messaging, political messaging, that repetition is essential in the creation of truth. Is something that I would say like when I was drunk with my friends and stuff, because it's like kind of magical sounding, or like it almost sounds like some dystopian shit. But the heart of it is that anything important you need to say multiple times to make sure that people really understand it. Because just saying, we chase novelty all the time, we love novelty, but we shouldn't let our love of novelty get in the way of our ability to be effective political communicators, and repetition is essential in the creation of truth. So that's where this thing about like having these repeated riffs came from. And one of them was that society would be organized like a lending library, where people could have access to the things that they want or need without the burden of ownership, and something said in multiple episodes. And then, yeah, it was in Running and Hiding where we did this sketch about the city-state of usufruct, this library socialist thing. And I remember at the time we were like really stoked on it, of just like thinking this is super creative and fun and inspiring and really cool. And someone in the YouTube comment section, someone by the name of Connor Drake, shout out to Connor Drake, also did a theme song for us, said, "You guys have been talking a lot about this library socialism stuff lately. When are you going to do an episode about it?" And like Aaron read this out loud to me as we're sitting down to record one day. And we were both like, yeah, we're going to do that episode next.
Yeah, I remember, we sat down to record it and we kind of were just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like library socialism and like, I don't know, we didn't have it all planned out when we started doing the episodes. But as soon as we started talking about it, I think we were both like, oh yeah, this doesn't just make sense for that one thing of like, oh yeah, organizing society like a lending library. It also makes sense in terms of using less materials. It also makes sense in terms of libraries being this bastion of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, socialism in a capitalist world. They are this place where you can go and not everything is commoditized. You can get access to the wealth of human knowledge for free. They're this place where all these different complementary parts come together to make something that's the bigger than the sum of its parts, like a complementary whole. And like we just kept finding things where we were like, oh yeah, libraries do kind of represent that, or they do enable this thing, or they're related. It felt like discovering something really amazing when we were doing that first episode, especially.
Yeah, and over the course of the arc that we did of the 3 episodes, so we'd already done library socialism and usufruct, but I was reading Bookchin's Ecology of Freedom at the time. And at one part in the book, he talks about usufruct, irreducible minimum, and complementarity as these 3 concepts of like non-capitalistic, free associative societies in history. And seeing usufruct, and I'd already been thinking about usufruct, and usufruct I actually got from Bookchin from some other source along the way. Usufruct, irreducible minimum, complementarity really started kind of, I was thinking about it and it's like, these are the inversions of capitalism. Like usufruct is the inversion of private property. Irreducible minimum is the inversion of being forced to work to live. And the ideology of complementarity and like cooperative difference and so on is the inversion of the ideology of hierarchy. And like often we struggle with defining capitalism in a way that we could ever escape it. Where like there's this kind of capitalism of the gaps thing that no matter what you do, like all anarchist, socialist, communist projects throughout history always have some form of market relations or some form of currency, or there's some way that people are like, well, it's kind of a market, it's kind of capitalism, it's still sneaking in there. And like over time, it really started resonating to me that these are pillars that can provide a roadmap to inverting the logic of capitalism. So from that first episode, it felt like it was coming alive. Like we didn't plan out the episode very much. It was a very casually done episode, and it just turned out something we were so proud of. And then over time, it's like the resonance has only deepened. It's something that's just like, when we started that episode, I didn't expect like, oh, I'm going to start identifying as a library socialist primarily, and I'm going to meet other people who also identify as library socialists in the near future.
Yeah, no, it was like, we experiment with different ways of framing these same political ideas all the time. And like, here's one that sounds kind of interesting or unique, or this will be a different thing to talk about it in this way for a little while. But yeah, it really just felt like we stumbled into something that like, I would be willing to pick up a different label or shift or whatever if my ideas change or if there was some better way of talking about it. But it really just doesn't feel like there is a better way of talking about it in terms of like getting across the things that we care about and the ideas that we have in 2 words. Like that's no easy feat. And library socialism, I think, is like the best we can come up with.
Yeah, asterisk so far. But no, I think it's really deeply resonant. And from conversations we've had with other people over the years, and just like people bring stuff to us all the time, like, hey, what about this? Like, I was thinking about library socialism. I thought, well, what about this in this context? And it's like, yeah. It's like, right. Not only yeah, but like, holy shit, yeah, like another layer has been unlocked. So that'd be like 2018-ish.
I think, the first episode was 2019. But yeah, it was during 2018, I think, where we started talking about libraries more. But I mean, broader than that, like I started caring about zeitgeist stuff in probably like 2011 or 2010. Yeah. So there was like a big, long build up. It was just like we both had our political backgrounds, and through our conversations developed things that we had this broad base of agreement on. And then the language to describe it as library socialism sort of emerged over the course of a few months where we were through that running and hiding episode and then doing the series.
Yeah, my political kind of radicalization, for lack of a better term too, was also like 2010, 2011, 2012. And that's where I got the first sense of like looking at the internet differently as a library, looking at copyright differently, and then also the prospect of like utopianism being potentially good. I remember where I was in Gastown, where I lived at the time. I lived above this pizza parlor that kept on burning down, and I lived above them. And I'm walking home through Gastown, and I'm like probably smoking a joint or something. And I was like, we have a word for the best possible society, utopia. Like, why don't we just use it? Like, aren't we all shooting for the best possible society?
Right.
And I remember being like really captured by this idea of like, why don't we just use utopia?
Yeah. No, I remember you bringing that to me very early on in the show too, because in the zeitgeist sort of spheres, they were very much like, this is not a utopian movement. No, we're very hard-nosed, scientific. We're trying to like discover the truth of things and engineer a society to meet everybody's needs. And it's like the things we're describing aren't utopian, they're realistic. And you had that kind of opposite approach of like, why not just like embrace, like, yeah, it's utopian, we're like shooting for the best possible society, why not like embrace it? If people are going to use utopian as a pejorative, one of the best things to do anytime people are trying to use something to insult you is to be like, yeah, no, I am that thing, and it's a good thing, and here's why it's a good thing. Utopianism is good.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that made me really click with Bookchin early on too. It's like one of the finding out that Bookchin had this positive frame on utopia. I was like, man, this guy gets me. There's something here.
Oh, what the hell? Windows.
Someone's breaking into our studio?
In the middle of us recording our 10-year anniversary special? Who is that?
Hey, Wrong Boys. I didn't like that bit you did. I'm a huge fan, but I didn't like that one bit you did.
Oh, which bit? Or, I mean, they can't all land for everybody, but...
Right, I mean, there's
something
for
we
everything.
ever did anything to make people, like, this mad. Like,
Did we not explain the clarity of the purpose of our satire enough once?
Ooh, oh, no. We try to make it obvious.
Sometimes to a fault.
Would you just put the gun down or like pointed down?
Always the voice of reason, Aaron. Always the voice of reason, huh? I'll show you.
At least keep the fingers like away from the trigger.
Trigger discipline, it's called, right?
Yeah.
It's good. Everyone says it's good.
Yeah, always do that.
I didn't like that bit you boys did when you did that fictionalized thing with the crazed superfan breaks into your studio threatening you. You know, fans aren't like that. People don't even like you that much. You know, it's kind of self-aggrandizing, isn't it?
That was kind of like the point of it. I get it can seem self-aggrandizing. We were trying to make fun of the idea of it being self-aggrandizing.
We had some of the same reservations as you, obviously. I mean,
yeah, it's...
No, it's not right. It's not right to talk about people who like you that way. It's demeaning.
But the thing, we know all of our fans aren't like that, so they'll see that sketch. They won't think, oh, that's about me. They'll think, oh, that's about some fictional other.
Yeah, and I thought the meta-ironic element that where it kind of folds on itself kind of saved it and redeemed it and made it...
Yeah.
Oh yeah, meta-ironic, huh? Oh, well, yeah, actually, you know what, guys? I'm going to leave you alone. I'm going to just creep out of this broken window here and just... You go back to recording, I'm sorry.
We appreciate it, thank you.
I guess I didn't really get the meta-ironic element, but... Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely there, yeah.
We're actually very humble people. Okay, well, thank you so much for having me here. Just gonna let you boys go. Do your thing. Do your thing. I've got a few more other podcasters and YouTubers on my list, so see ya. Bye.
Just don't go there either. Just go home. Hang out at home. That's my advice. Goodbye. Keep leaving. Don't stop leaving. Bye. But don't go to other podcasters' house. I just feel responsible. I should tell you that you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I don't want to be patronizing because I know you're not really like that, but it's just better to never harass anyone. Bye. Don't do that to anyone.
Well, he was nice. Nice enough.
Yeah, well, not super nice.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit naive. But I feel like he meant well.
Well, it's admirable. It's honestly admirable because you mean well about him meaning well.
Right.
And that's what means best of all.
So true, yeah. Anyway, you want to get back to what we were saying?
Yeah.
All right, next question. What is the wrongest you've ever been on the show?
Juicy,
Ooh,
juicy
yeah.
question.
Let's squeeze some of that juice out.
So, for context, I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years. This is a long time.
Yeah.
We've been learning in public. And when you get into those early episodes, you have people who are qualitatively and provably more naive, less experienced.
Yeah, it was 10 years ago. We're in our mid-20s, in our mid-30s now.
Imagine there was recordings of you from 10 years ago. How embarrassed would you be?
Look, in content creator world now, I often see people saying things like, oh, they said that 2 years ago. How do you even know they still believe that? Can you hold them to it? So, this is 10 years ago now. Really just building it up. Like, I don't think anything that we said was like that bad. There was definitely like a different kind of perspective on certain things, even though I think our political positions were largely the same.
Yeah, overall, really, I think there's a lot of stuff to admire about our early positions and that there's a lot of consistency in our development and so on. But overall, like, I'd say, I think the wrongest thing, and it's a trend that there's like a bunch of little pieces to it that you can put together, or say the first 50 episodes in particular, and then to a lesser extent, maybe the next 50 episodes after that. So the first third of our show, but the first sixth of our show the most, is that often we were too conciliatory about ideological difference, and we underestimated the dangers, and we underestimated differences of motivation, differences of interest. Well, there's class politics across our entire show. We underestimated the kind of like sinister, like the threat of fascism. Like, to us, Nazis were a joke. The KKK was a joke, that they were not serious.
Growing up in the 90s, you're like, oh, we beat racism and it's over now. And everyone understands that it's wrong. And it's kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's like the unconscious ideal. Even though we're coming into recognizing what's happening in the world with racism and stuff, there's still this unconscious bias towards that sort of stuff. And yeah, kind of an idealism in the pejorative sense sometimes comes through, or a utopianism in the pejorative sense, that like, oh, can't we just all get along? That wasn't like our final full position on things, and we always got into the nuance of stuff. And like, we still believe in that to a certain degree. Like, it would be nice if everyone could get along. There's a lot of circumstances where getting along is a desirable and possible outcome where others might think that it's not possible. But early on, I think that's, if we're talking about the wrongest that we've been, I think it's in that territory, and it's kind of a smattering of different things that happen across the first 50 episodes.
Yeah, I think like we had this kind of idea that like everybody means well, and even if they're like wrong about how to get there, everyone wants to get to a society where, people are happy and people are fed and like you have good lives. And like, I don't even think that's wrong necessarily, but I think the way we would frame it and talk about it at the time, like you're saying, kind of like downplays the danger of some of those other positions, or people who like maybe on some level want what's best for everyone, quote unquote, in some way, but their ideas of what's best for everyone is so malformed and deranged that they end up advocating for things that are like extremely harmful to people. And I think we would have admitted even at the time that was true, but it's just kind of, it's like a matter of emphasis almost, that you can just end up in some ways playing cover for things that are horrible. Like, one example of this is in multiple episodes early on, I would joke about the idea of white nationalists who were like a joke to me, that weren't a real threat, weren't a serious political faction that existed anymore, being like, well, if you love white people so much, why don't you just go create your straight white island? You can all find an uninhabited island somewhere and just go live white people all alone. Like, obviously you can't do that here because you'd have to kick people out, and but you want to go create straight white island, like, go do that. And this was something like we would debate people online and in Facebook groups, and it would be like a little own you could get on them too, and be like, oh yeah, sure, if you want to just go live with all the other white people, why not go create straight white island? It's kind of like a mocking thing, but it's also like lends legitimacy to their idea in a way that it's like reasonable to do that. And especially the straight white island part is weird, because like non-straight people will end up being born there, and then like they're kind of trapped on this straight white island with all these straight people, and that's fucked up. I think even one time I said like, oh, maybe we're at the point of history where like if weird white nationalist freaks want to have a whites only bar, that we've probably come far enough that that's not a big deal anymore. I think that's probably like the single wrongest thing I've ever said on the show. And it's like, yeah, an intense version of that 90s liberal naivete that like we've beat racism so much to the point now where, well, we're at that point now. It wouldn't even matter. Like everyone would see it was a joke and it wouldn't harm anyone or do anything wrong. And like, yeah, the political developments of the last 10 years, last 8 years have like pretty thoroughly disabused me of that notion. I no longer think we're at a point where that's okay. I don't think there really is a point where that would be okay. Like it doesn't even make sense. Because if people still want that, then that's the problem. Like
Totally.
And
racial exclusion is morally wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to defend our show and us as a unit here, when Aaron riffed this, I was like, nah, man, nah. Like,
yeah,
no.
I think like early on you were just kind of like, yeah, okay, like whatever, like not really into it. But I brought this up multiple times, the straight white island thing, and like the more times I would, yeah, like an ongoing joke, and you would be like more and more forcefully pushing back against it as time went on.
Yeah, until there was a time too, like we fully repudiated and broke from this riff. Because a listener asked us, like, why can't there be like a white country or whatever? I don't understand what the big deal, like, I don't want it, but what's the big deal? Right. And then we did this section, this is like in one of our early Q&A episodes, so this maybe between 50 and 100, where, we laid out, like, these are the moral issues with it, these are the logistical issues with it, and like, racial exclusion is completely wrong, so like, no. But like, I think like if you go back and listen to this stuff, I worry about making it sound worse than it actually was by like harping on it as the wrongest we've ever been. Because it's like a really minor thing. It was kind of a riff and like it was very casual, but like that casualness belied a certain lack of seriousness on thinking about racism and so on. So it bothers us. And I think that's the thing is like, thinking about the wrongs we've ever been, it's very rarely like, oh, I remember that time that we were like, everyone should vote for Hitler, or whatever, like, whoa, we were so silly back then, It's not like that. It's just little stupid things. Like one that bugs me is in the first 50 episodes, I don't know which episode it was, but I know that's stuck in my brain because I listened back to it. I was like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have. I made some riff about, black mold we're talking about black mold. And black mold is so dangerous. And I riff, nature is racist. And I just hate that so much. And it wasn't even if you listen to it in context, you would never think I'm endorsing racism as natural or something like that. But it just, oh man, it just bugs me so much. I've thought about, like, I haven't listened to this in probably 7 years, right? But when you ask me what's the wrongest I've ever been on Seriously Wrong, boom, that comes to my mind. Like, it just stuck with, it's like, that's just so... The implications of that are so nasty. And racism is a social phenomenon of domination of humans over humans. It is not a product of nature. And the fact that racists try to make racism a product of nature to hide the fact that they are socially dominating other humans for social ends, and they're creating racialized hierarchies to benefit themselves at the expense of other people. And this was totally out of my mind at the time, obviously. Like this is 9 years ago or something. But God, it bugs me that I said that, and I wish that I didn't. And so I just want to apologize to the intellectual community for ever putting out that kind of vibe into the universe in any way at all, because it's just so wrong. Like, there's nothing racist about nature that doesn't come from humans' projections onto nature.
Nature can't even be racist because racism is like an ideology that is held in like a conscious being's society or like either an individual or a social structure. It's not something that like nature can be. It doesn't even like... But it's like, yeah, it comes from like being naive in the pejorative sense and just like not understanding what some of these things we're saying are kind of like playing into. We were talking about this like a couple weeks ago when we first saw this question, and I was describing the straight white island thing and like, oh, I think came from this or this naivety, and you were like, oh yeah, so it's like you weren't like deeply racist or something, and I was like, well, it is a kind of deep racism, not like a malevolent hatred racism, but a sort of like deeply ingrained ignorance of just not having looked into these things enough to understand why what you're saying is so wrong. So it's like, yeah, like kind of deep racism, but not like intentional, vicious racism. I don't know if you agree with that characterization.
So
but
you admit you're racist.
I admit that I've been unlearning racism for my entire life, and I'm further along that journey now than I've ever been.
Another thing that really bugs me, it's recent. This is the most recent thing, is in the David Wengrow episode, we didn't double check the pronunciation of Teotihuacan.
Teotihuacan. We did a whole sketch about the story of Teotihuacan,
which was just reading phonetically, like hooked on phonics, and like And the thing is, you're reading this whole book and you're working on all these sketches and like trying to get the episode out. You're thinking about what the next episode is, and we skipped the due diligence part of being like, this is an unfamiliar word that we should be sure that we're pronouncing correctly, because
especially if we're going to do a whole sketch telling the story of this place,
and
like
we're going to say it so many
times.
times. And that's still in the episode because extracting it and replacing it was going to take so much effort that we just made a note.
To re-record the whole sketch and mentions later in the episode.
And then
we had already released the episode by the time we realized that we had pronounced it wrong. Like it was like the day it came out, and we're like riding this high of like, oh, so what a great episode just made. And then
everyone's
it's like,
good reaction, great guest, big new book, one of our biggest episodes ever. And yeah, no, it's just embarrassing. Just embarrassing. Yeah. I mean, in a way, that's the wrongest we've ever been.
Yeah, in a way. It's another one I'll quickly mention is we did an episode early on called anti-vaxxers or something like that. Part of it was like us debating about vaccine safety. And I mentioned zeitgeist movement. It kind of come from this sort of weird conspiracy movement turned utopian movement thing. So there was a lot of like medical conspiracy and things floating around in these circles. So I took some of the things I was reading about vaccines a bit more seriously than I think were probably warranted. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just embarrassed about like arguing the anti-vaccine side in a debate that's kind of like makes me cringe. I wasn't like, I know that vaccines are bad. I think we were both kind of like, well, we're not medical doctors. We don't know. But hey, I read this thing and like, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Aluminum and the vaccine, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
But we used to do more episodes too, where like we would take a big issue and then each of us would self-consciously take a position. Another one like this is we did the Trump versus Hillary episode where I argued full-throatedly in favor of Hillary Clinton and you argued 75% throatedly in favor of Donald Trump on which is the better option and and like, I don't know, I haven't listened back to it. The premise is a little embarrassing, but
I remember us being like, we both agree Bernie Sanders is the best, but who's second best? That's what our debate is about. Is it Trump or Hillary?
And it wasn't, it was just about exploring ideas. And over time, as we've focused more on kind of the craft of deepening episodes and doing like big edutainment pieces and all that kind of stuff, we've kind of moved away from thinking out loud and playing with ideas that way that we did in earlier episodes and more towards presenting our conclusions, our best understanding of issues. In a intellectual climate where floating an idea is considered to like, sometimes there's kind of a repressive ideological climate, right? Where by floating an idea is like seen as a representative of your soul or something like that. Because you're like, look, I got this clip of Aaron saying that Trump might be better than Hillary or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, it's partially because people quote unquote float ideas because they want to say the idea, but they want to like avoid responsibility for saying the idea. So it gets mixed up, but then it gets into this place where you genuinely like, it's hard to just float an idea without people ascribing it to you necessarily. But I think also like the more people you have listening to you, the bigger a platform you have, the more, you know, you probably shouldn't just be floating whatever idea pops into your head. You should check and make sure that it's true. And I mean, just even my like research abilities have improved so much since then. Like, I think a lot of those things I was saying about vaccines in that episode, I'd be much more equipped now to look up the answers to. Like, I had some more experience in this when COVID hit and we did some debating. We talked about this person we debated on the election fraud issue, but we also debated him a bit on COVID vaccine stuff. And I checked a bunch of the claims about the COVID vaccine and was like, oh yeah, these are like, none of these are actually true.
Yeah, no, a lot of this, it just comes, like, it's the naivety turning into a more informed naivety over time.
Yeah.
And being more, yeah, and like the floating ideas too is also that kind of like idealism and being too reconciliatory and so on, which in many ways it's admirable too. I'd like to preserve that part of us to some degree as well.
Yeah. The anti-vaxxer episode we called it that because the people who were against anti-vaxxers were annoying me at the time, because I was like, you're not even just responding to what they say. You're not taking them seriously. You're just throwing dead babies at them and claiming they're murderers. And like, you can't even have a civil debate about this topic. And it is that kind of, again, like naivete and like wanting both sides to be able to have a real conversation, and like everyone means well in this situation. So why can't we all just get along? And
yeah.
So
that's what we're most wrong about. And
that's a smash. Those are like, the biggest ones that jump out to me at this moment in time.
And we share that in full humility with our soft pink underbellies exposed and say, if you want to try to use that against us, I mean, please don't. But
or maybe do. I mean, if you have like a
cancel wrong boys.
Yeah, hashtag cancel the wrong boys. You know, it'll be like emotionally difficult for me if you do that, but it would probably be good for our numbers. So
yeah, our haters make us famous, as the old Hot Topic hat says.
What a deranged world this content creator life is.
Yeah, it is true. No, I just hate it. I hate when people get mad at me and I mean well.
Yeah, no, it sucks.
Especially if I'm like admitting I'm wrong. I'll be like, I was wrong, I'm sorry. It was 9 years ago. You know, Obama was president. Oh yeah, on that, in early episodes, I defended Obama like a few times, like probably 4 or 5 times.
Right.
I would never do that now. Next question from the listener mailbag. Does it feel the same as the first time recording Seriously Wrong? The short answer is yes, absolutely, in every way.
Exactly, yeah.
No, the real short answer is no. Everything changes all the time forever, and that is the nature of things.
Yeah, it's 10 years ago. First episode we ever recorded was our 3rd conversation in person. Now we're at conversation easily 2000. Yeah. It's hard to know. We didn't count. We should have numbered every conversation we've ever had, but we didn't keep up with that. We've known each other for 10 years versus like a month. It was brand new then. We didn't know what we were doing. Now we've been doing it for 10 years. It's kind of like old, what's that?
Hat.
We're old hat at this thing now. Yeah.
When we first started doing it, we had a couple dozen listeners, a couple hundred listeners, kind of territory. Now we consistently get thousands and thousands of listeners, which is just a different vibe and feeling responsible for what you say. And like, I mean, someone told me that, I mean, some people have said I listened to early episodes and I didn't like it. I didn't like the early episodes when you guys didn't know as much and you weren't as good at making podcasts. But I've also had someone say, I really like those early episodes because they're so raw.
Right.
It's just so raw. You just don't give a fuck.
You're like unself-conscious, unfiltered, just...
And someone else told me that listening to the entire run of Seriously Wrong has the answers to the life, universe, and everything. That it's really about more than just politics. That it's about being human. And hearing our journey over the years is deeper than hearing any individual episode.
Probably true, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't feel like the first time we've experimented with different production styles. We just have I think we have a deeper sense of the show that we want to do and like what episodes make us proud and how to do what we want to do. And Also, and I think we have a different sense of responsibility as well, of like, we want to help contribute to people being able to advance the liberation of other human beings in the best way possible.
Yeah, I think early on too, there was more of a sense of like just wanting to like express, whatever was on your mind. And then over the years, you build up some things like, defending anti-vax stuff or Straight White Island, and then you're a bit more like circumspect about like, maybe I don't have to say everything that pops into my head. There's some of that seeped in, and just wanting to be more responsible. And I think too, like at the beginning, becoming podcasters or becoming like a person working in a creative field was like an aspiration for us. It was this thing we were shooting for. And now it's this thing we've achieved, and we're like maintaining it. And there's the kind of day-to-day grind of continuing to produce podcasts. We have to edit and record and schedule, and just sort of, it's a very different vibe in a lot of ways. Still rewarding, but just, very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Seriously Wrong started as an escape from work, and to us, it's our job now, our primary job. Sometimes we do other jobs as well to supplement, because it's very expensive to live where we live. But anything being a job is a different vibe than it being a hobby. But then also comes with that a level of kind of like professional capacity, and that we make just a much better show that I'm more proud of, that I think when all said and done, when people say like, what are the great episodes of Seriously Wrong? A lot of them are like yet to come, because we're just getting more and more deep into these processes in the show we want to make, and we're learning more and more. So it feels different, but in a non-hierarchical way. Yeah, not better or worse, but different. Feels different.
Next question. What does the future hold for Seriously Wrong? And I guess the most obvious answer is approximately 80 more episodes. I don't know. I forget what number we're at exactly. 680 more episodes, bringing us to a total of 1,000 episodes where we will achieve 10,000 years of world peace.
Yes.
It's a promise we've made since the very beginning, a promise we still maintain.
Yeah, not a naive early statement, but a wise early statement that we underline.
We fully stand behind. There's a reason that wasn't in the wrongest we've ever been.
No, it's the rightest we've ever been. If there was a rightest, no one asked us what's the rightest you've ever been, because it would be absurd. We'd have to do a 5-hour, 9-hour episode to talk about all the times we've been so right.
It would take another 300 episodes to describe fully all the times we've been right.
Yeah, there's only a few small cuts here and there, and we just have to rebroadcast everything.
It's wild to think to reach 1,000 episodes, we're about a third of the way there. And it's been about 10 years. So it's wild to think that we would be in our mid-50s, maybe even a little more, because our pace now is slightly slower than it was like the first year or two. So we might even be around 60 by the time we finally reach that 1,000 episodes. It's kind of a mindfuck to think of, but it makes sense. It's like a life's work to build 10,000 years of world peace. You're not going to get it done.
Yeah. Well, actually, and I mean, just thinking about all the stuff that we've explored and learned over these last 10 years, it really does seem more feasible than ever that at 1,000 episodes, we will have set the groundwork for 10,000 years of world peace. It's just one of those things that's true that you keep on saying, and it only makes it more true, because repetition is essential in the creation of truth. And that's why we want to thank everyone, because it's not just about making a great podcast, although it certainly is a great podcast. It's also about creating 10,000 years of world peace for our children, grandchildren, everyone's children and grandchildren. As James Baldwin says, the children of the world are everyone's. We all have a responsibility to all children. And we couldn't have got this far without you, our wonderful listeners, donors, people who engage with the show and spread the word about the show. And we can't get where we're going without being connected with even more great people like you, dear listener. But what might we do in the future? We might do video essays, writing, definitely more podcasts, better podcasts.
Yeah, I'd say more podcasts is the surest of sure things. And then other projects, like we made a cartoon show a couple years back with Means TV, and that was a fun project. There's a lot could be said about that, but it was a fun project. Happy about how it turned out. I think there's like a lot of things we could dip into, we could try, but I don't know. I don't think we know for sure.
Maybe Aaron runs for mayor.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, no. That was like the extrovert teasing the introvert kind of joke. Like, just imagine, like, you just hate that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Standing up and like giving a speech and being like, vote for me. Nightmare world.
That's why you're the right guy for the job.
It's
It's a funny election common sense thing. It's like, because people who want to run for office, right, they're like evil, like
Right.
two-faced. So you really want to find someone you have to drag kicking and screaming to do it, and that's how you know it's going to be good. But then it's like, actually, well,
I
it
don't think
takes a lot
that's
of
true either.
yeah, it takes a lot of work to, and you have to like know a lot of stuff. There needs to be some passion behind it. You can't just plop. Like, Aaron genuinely doesn't want to be mayor. It doesn't mean you put him in the office of mayor and he's going to like rise to the occasion necessarily.
Yeah, I think the logic there is like if you don't want the power, you're less likely to use it for horrible ends. But I don't even think that's true. Like, someone could not want the power, and then once they have it, be like,
Completely
oh shit,
corrupted
maybe
by
I'm
it.
just gonna like deposit some of this money for public housing into my private bank account, and whatever. Just
Yeah.
because you didn't want to be mayor doesn't mean you're immune to the draws of using power for ill. Yeah, I don't know. That was a weird tangent to get on, but
No, it's
we don't-
interesting though. It's
we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what's in the future, but
if you do, please reach out.
Oh yeah, stock tips, please,
Mhm.
or tips on how to build a successful revolution. Alternatively,
Yeah, to transform society towards an ecological and democratic commune of communes where people are paid according to need and the world is run like a giant lending library.
yeah.
That could come in handy right about now.
Yeah, if your crystal ball tells you that, like, I don't know, crystal balls, they probably all work differently. And like, it's hard to say exactly what every crystal ball will tell you.
Right.
But whatever your crystal ball
Even
does,
if you're a crystal ball expert, even they don't know.
yeah, it's always different. And every crystal ball is different. But, we're open to all information from the future. That's what we're saying. So please send it back in time towards us. And we'll use it to the best of our ability to do good. So 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years, a decade.
A decade
Is-
come and gone.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. Time passes.
Yeah.
I've always
it does.
known time to pass.
Yeah.
But still, looking back at,
The amount of time that's passed
still, yeah, it's kind of odd.
since the start of the show. In some ways, it doesn't feel like 10 years. In some ways, it does.
Yeah, well, I mean, Seriously Wrong has been such a integral part of my day-to-day psychology for so long at this point. It's kind of like, like an old couple, like if one of them dies, the other one dies soon afterwards.
Right.
It's like, I feel like if Seriously Wrong suddenly stopped, like I just genuinely wouldn't know what to do. I'd be like, where do I plug this energy? And I've got all these like,
Right.
I don't think I would die though. No offense. But what a long, strange trip it's been.
Yeah. 10
And
years of
continues
recording
to be.
episodes right here in this very living room.
Yeah, this exact living room. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for listening for all 10 years. I assume you listened to the first episode when it came out, and then you've been listening to every episode as they've come out. So you've been on a 10-year trip with us. Actually, but someone recently said something similar to that to us in a message that they'd started like in the first year or something, and they'd
Right.
really cool, really interesting. But I know for a fact that the majority of our audience has found us over the last handful of years.
Yeah.
And I keep on running into people in public through left-wing groups, so it makes sense, like activist groups. But they're like, I recognize your voice because I listened to your show. And it's such a weird trip. Like, that never happened before the pandemic. And I've been kind of like more isolated. And then I had the kid. And like now I'm going out and I'm meeting more people, getting more involved in activism again. And I keep on meeting these people who are like, seriously
Another
wrong.
podcast, right?
Yeah. It's really cool. But yeah, I don't know. What can you say about that?
Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for your support, your ears, your
Time and attention.
Yeah.
Patreon contributions, if it applies, or even if it doesn't apply, thank you for your future Patreon contributions, or you're thinking about Patreon contributions but not being ready yet. You're thinking of balancing different things, etc.
Or even if you think about contributing on Patreon and decide against it, thank you for thinking about it.
Yeah,
at
giving a real
least.
consideration.
Yeah.
And even if you intend to do it and you never end up doing it and you unfortunately pass away before you can do it, thank you so much for bringing that to the grave with you. That intention means
Or
a
if
lot
you
to us.
if you put it in your will that your estate will donate to the Patreon from now on until you set aside a fund for thank you for that as well.
That would be so crazy. Okay, so, I mean, maybe this is too much to ask, but imagine if, like, someone listening, like, left us money in their will. That would be fucking so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, don't take it away from, like, your kids if they need it, or...
I mean, unless you got a lot.
Yeah, depending, obviously.
Like, don't take it all away from your kids, but, like, also you don't want to leave them too much. They might be
you don't want to
ungrateful.
spoil them or whatever, so... I mean, you know your finances best and the needs of your loved ones best, but if you can find it in your will to leave us some money... we're obligated
or your life
to
insurance
say that we agree with it. Yeah, mark us down as the beneficiaries on your life insurance.
Leave us a house or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
Imagine we just like got a house in Kansas, the Seriously Wrong estate.
Yeah, we'd have to move down there.
Yeah, I'm not becoming a landlord. I'm moving there.
Yeah, I guess we could sell it and buy a house somewhere else, but. I don't know. We'd have to see.
We'll cross that road when we come to it very soon.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Yeah, bye, everybody. We now go to the universe where Seriously Wrong never existed in the year 2024.
So thirsty.
Yeah, I could really use some water.
So hot. And food, too.
Yeah, plants would be great.
Trees for shade or fruits to eat.
This barren, storm-struck hellscape.
I would just settle for an end to the sandstorms eroding my skin away. I feel like I'm turning into sand.
I would settle just to have the dune wolf stop stalking us in the night.
Oh, where did we go wrong as a society? How did it all fall apart?
I can't help but feel there was another way, but it's gone now.
My last shred of hope died.
And that's what will happen, Wrong Boys, if you don't follow your hearts. Work together on this show. Don't let the setbacks drag you down. You're doing something important.
Oh, thank you, Miss Old Psychic.
I'm so glad we turned to you.
What do you say, Shawn? Should we set our differences aside and get back to what really matters, making this podcast together?
Yeah, I mean, what's one professional disagreement in a 10-year partnership? I mean,
Yeah.
water under the bridge, old friend.
Put her here. We'll just shake hands. So just
Up and down.
down. Yep. Just hold on 1 second. Getting a phone call. Hello? Hey. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. Hey, it seems like the Canadian government is passing new regulations on podcasts. You have to be a certain amount of patriotic, and they're going to be auditing all of our old episodes.
Oh, gee. All right. I guess we can work with that. Oh, my phone's ringing. Hello? Hey, buddy, how's it going? What? Well, I mean, not the most. Okay, thank you. So, apparently, Seriously Wrong has been declared the #1 enemy of the people by a Stalinist cult called the Red People's Legion.
Oh. Ew.
Yeah, apparently they're telling everyone that our bourgeois utopianism is infecting the minds of the revolutionary proletariat, which makes us the largest and most powerful enemy of communism in the world, even ahead of fascists and social democrats and so on.
I don't think that's quite fair. I mean, I like communism.
That's not how I see us at all, but
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll figure it out. Oh, hello? Whoa. Really? How many? Huh. Phew, okay. How's our bookkeeper on the phone? Our Patreon numbers are crashing. We had hundreds of cancellations just in the past few hours. People are really, really angry about what you said about the Toy Story trilogy being better than the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
you can't cancel me for one little opinion, just one simple opinion.
And it's true, too. It's not even like we can go back on it. I agree with that. You agree with that.
It's a great trilogy.
Yeah.
It's a family trilogy.
It's just factually better than Lord of the Rings. I don't know. It's just...
Ooh, hello. Hey, good to hear from you. No, but that's supposed to be our big break. I mean, what didn't Jimmy like? Okay, if you change your mind, let us know. God damn it. It's the Tonight Show. They said that we can't do a Type 5 for them anymore.
But we've been practicing for weeks. We're slated to record tonight.
Apparently,
So
Jimmy
you'd be
Kimmel
there
found
tonight?
something in the archive that he found objectionable.
You won't even say what it is?
God damn.
Oh,
That's
no.
supposed to be our big break.
We just resolved all our personal differences, but now we're at an even lower point than we've ever been before.
Oh, God damn it. All this bad news at once. It's
sucks.
Yeah, well, we just have to regroup. We'll figure it out. We'll pull through this. We always do.
All right, I'm just going to take a quick trip to the John just to take my mind off this.
Yeah, you have to use the bathroom for normal bodily function things.
I'm going to go do some heroin because I'm addicted to it. It feels good. It takes my mind off this kind of stuff. So I'm just going to head over there, and I'll be back in like 40 minutes, and then we can start working.
Actually, this was another thing I wanted to talk to you about. I was going to do a whole intervention with your parents, my parents.
Oh, for you to start
Everyone.
doing heroin as well?
No.
Get everyone together? Because I've been thinking, like, it gets us a little out of sync when I'm doing heroin and you're not, so maybe it'd be better if we were both doing it.
No, yeah, well, I agree we're out of sync, but no, the intervention was for you to stop doing hair. That's typically what an intervention is. I know it started recreational for you, just a bit of fun, but it's become a real issue. You know, the benders, the fentanyl orgies.
Yeah, it's recreational. I mean, I think I'm balancing it pretty well.
I'm sure you're having fun, but look, we're facing more challenges than we've ever faced before, and I think we both need to be clear-headed, off drugs, and at our best on top of the ball. I don't think you're at your best when you're on heroin. And as much fun as it sounds to join you in the bathroom, I just no. Maybe the party's over.
Well, maybe just one more time, or I mean, I can balance it well. I'm getting so much done. I'm so productive, and heroin's the thing that's kept me going since that Malaysian plane went missing with our producer and third co-host Alex on it.
Right.
It's really clean stuff. It's clean, good stuff. But maybe I don't need it anymore. I'll just look in this mirror. Maybe he's right. Maybe the party is over. Maybe it's time to put my head down and get serious for the good of the show. Maybe it's time to go to the library and study socialism. I could kick this stuff.
What was that you said? The library socialism?
Go to the library and study library socialism. That almost sounds like applying the principle of usufruct
to society.
Yeah, to turn the whole world into a lending library according to ecological principles. Yeah. I like the sound of that. That's an idea that's even better than a heroin addiction.
Yeah, we need to develop this further. Those Stalinists and Toy Story haters are going to have to listen to us now. And that was an exclusive clip from Seriously Right, the Wrong Boys biopic. And now it is time to announce the winner of the 2025 Academy Award for Best Picture.
And the Oscar goes to Seriously Right, the Wrong Boys biopic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
so much,
Oh,
everyone.
man, it's an armful of these Oscars now. It's hard to shove another one in there, but I guess...
After a long night, I mean, best cinematography, best acting, best original screenplay.
Best director.
It's an honor to get a sweep like this, but it wasn't just us. I mean, obviously, we have to thank the Wrong Boys for the work that they did
Absolutely.
on the podcast all those years. I mean, we couldn't have done this without them. Our producers were incredible, the actors.
Yeah, Wrong Boys as producers, Wrong Boys as actors, they did great. And you too, I just want to thank you, because I think...
No, thank you. You brought so much to
Individually.
it. Often we get credited as a duo, and we don't individually get the credit we deserve.
Exactly.
I want to thank the Academy, everyone who cast their ballots. I got the DVD screeners, as I understand it. And Billy Crystal has been an incredible host.
Yeah, thank God it wasn't a Jimmy Kimmel year.
Oh, and I want to thank everyone who purveys evil in the world and wrongdoing, because as a political show, we're sort of paradoxically caught up in the external stress and drama of the world. So in a way, although they are opposite and we condemn them and fight them, we could have never done this without them.
Yeah, and in terms of a biopic, we would have had nothing to overcome if it weren't for all of the evil that we faced on the way.
Yeah, and I want to thank, again, the Wrong Boys for opening up about the trauma they experienced and in some ways
was
reliving
brave
it on camera.
Of them, yeah.
Which, yeah, it was bravery. And it's not the kind of small bravery of like a firefighter or like a search and rescue operator or something like that. These people are well trained and they know exactly what they're doing. They're confident. This is the bravery of someone who's stepping out into the unknown,
Absolutely,
which is a bigger type and more profound type of bravery.
There is nothing braver than sharing your story in the form of a biopic.
Starring you and produced by you.
Yeah,
based
I've
on your-
always said it, and I'll always stand by it. And I think our sweep of the Oscars here today proves it.
Next up after the break, the Oscar for Lifetime Achievement in Podcasting. Who will our big winner be tonight?
I'll just pop out this tape.
Oh, that was such a career highlight when we won all those Oscars.
Absolutely, yes. And what's even more incredible is that the 10th anniversary special predicted it accurately.
Well, you know, we always had a knack for accurately predicting the future in our sketches.
True, yes.
Even though they weren't recordings sent back in time, many of them could have been.
Some say that maybe they are in a weird way, but not literally, but more like across some sort of dimensional thing or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, my experience of it was that we recorded them at the time without any actual future foreknowledge, just our intuition, and they all ended up being not only right, but note for note perfect, sounding exactly like the real events as they transpired later on.
Now that we've gotten that out of the way, great reminiscing, by the way. But today, our podcast boy.
Yeah, the anthropomorphic boy.
He was kept alive his whole long, storied life by the generosity of the Patreon donors, but now, after we've done 1,000 episodes, he is reaching the end of his journey.
Yeah, ready to move on.
He's
to
a
the
ripe
next.
old, we were pretty young when we started. He's a fairly ripe old age himself.
I mean, many podcasts only live 1, 2 years, 5 or 6.
Couple
They're
episodes
lucky.
even.
He's lived, many decades.
Yeah, one created world peace as well. I mean,
Yeah, how many podcasts can say
he's
that?
feeling proper chuffed last I spoke to him about all this. But he did ask that we see him off at his deathbed, so let's
Absolutely, yeah. We'll just head over there right now.
down the hallway to his deathbed.
Boy, podcast boy, or podcast man, I guess
Podcast
now.
man.
Old podcast man. How are you? How's your last moments on Earth?
Oh, I've been better. I'm sorry I was such a burden to you both.
Oh, podcast man. No,
Don't
you
say
weren't
that,
a burden.
no.
No, you were the blessing of our life.
You were the greatest. If that evil wizard was here right now, I'd give him a big kiss on the cheek and thank him for the challenge and the joys of
yeah.
watching my anthropomorphized
2
podcast
kisses
child.
he'd be getting, one each. One from me and one from Shawn.
He's gonna look like Archie between Betty and Veronica. He comes through here because we're so proper chuffed to have you as our anthropomorphized podcast friend, and you've overcome so many medical issues. It's inspiring.
Yeah, lifelong medical issues and really the generosity of the patrons really kept that at bay for you, and what amazing things they did, and what an amazing life you've led.
Just open this door.
Hey, Wrong Boy's Pizzeria. Your pizza in 10 years or less. Here you go.
Oh, and with 15 seconds to spare. Perfect.
Extra large Hawaiian, just like you ordered almost 10 years ago, but not quite 10 years ago.
Oh, Shawn must have ordered that one.
I'm a fan. What can I say?
Look, I have never had any problems with pineapple on pizza. You all know that.
I was a kid when I first started eating this stuff. No one told me I was supposed to not like it. I just...
Ham and pineapple go together. I don't care what anyone says. They just do.
How's your business doing, by the way? After all these many years.
Yeah, this is what, 20, 30 years now of actually fulfilling orders after your initial 10 years of not having to?
Business is booming. I'd love to stay and chat about how great it's going, but we actually just have too many orders to fulfill right now. So business is going a little too well. But we actually now have a 100% delivery rate. We've really formalized the processes.
Wow, that's impressive.
We're actually the largest pizzeria in the world now. People have come to really value the kind of longevity and that kind of commitment. They want to participate in something that is not a fly-by-the-night 15-minute operation.
The thing I love about it most is that you order and then you don't know when it's going to come in the next 10 years, but you know that it will.
Thank you so much, but I gotta run. Okay, see ya.
Podcast, man, boy, it's, you'll always be a boy to us, even though you're
Yes.
a man now. Would you like some pizza, your last meal?
Yeah, maybe I'll wait a little while to die at a healthy old age and enjoy some slices.
Whoa, you give an old man a heart attack. Jumping in here like that.
Someone broke into our
Deathbed room. Yes, Wrong Boys. I'm angry at you both. I'm so angry at you. I just finished listening to your 10-year anniversary special and you never answered my question.
Oh,
I'm sorry. We don't have time for.
We couldn't answer all of them. We tried our
What's
best.
your question, though? I mean, just shoot. I mean, we're.
Well, the thing I've always wanted to know: how do you get your interviews for your podcast?
Well, sometimes we email them. Sometimes they email us.
Yeah, I mean, early on, we always had to do the emailing, but, after a while, sometimes people started emailing us. But, I mean, for the most part, we mostly do the emailing still.
And we got to give big credit to David Graeber, who agreed to come on the show. He really just bumped up the caliber of guests that we've been able to get since. I mean, he really did us a solid.
So what do you say? Will you put down the gun? Will you stop waving the gun in our faces?
Do you want a slice of Hawaiian pizza? It goes together.
Oh, thank you, Wrong Boys, for answering my question. That's all I've wanted to know. Let me put the gun down and yeah, I'll have a slice, thanks. Looks like everything worked out after all. Oh, you said it, anthropomorphic podcast son, boy, man.
He said it.
And so the world was saved, and humanity thrived for 10,000 years of world peace. The end.
I am wrong. You are wrong. We are wrong. I am wrong. He is wrong. She is wrong. They are wrong. We are wrong. Seriously. Seriously.